Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Trinity Exposed live show. The show we do live every Thursday, unless there's a break or something, to discuss the Trinity or to respond to people who have attempted to defend Constantine paganism and all its perverted forms and manifestations, right? We believe in one God the Father here, and it's really straightforward and clear in the accepted biblical documents, Old and New Testament, all the way through to the apostles appointed by Jesus, whose teachings, along with Jesus in the Old Testament, we are to hand on. So it's really simple for us. Now, it's been complicated because, of course, we're at war with the dragon, right? It's not supposed to be a real simple process where everything goes smooth all the time and we don't have to deal with problems or lack of certain information, but we know what we need to know. And Jesus said, if you want life, there's two things you need to know and do. Love God, the Father, his God, and our God with your whole heart, soul, and mind. One God of the Bible, Yahweh, Jah. And your neighbor is yourself. Those are two of our main three beliefs. Jesus being the third one, he being the life the Father sent, giving him life in himself that the Father always eternally had. So those to us, one God the Father, sent forth Savior, Jesus, Son of God, and the Golden Rule. Those are our three primary beliefs. Now, we're not Trinitarian. We don't believe in later paganism or Middle Platonic attempts to try to reinterpret the New Testament with Greek philosophy or things that it doesn't teach. And then, of course, to be later completely changed and taken over by a full-blown Roman emperor pagan and many other perverts and liars who, since that time, have done their very best to attack the seed of the woman indirectly by essentially lying to everybody and claiming that's who they are. Really? I don't think so. If you are, you would be doing as I said, teaching the very clear things in the Bible and what Jesus' apostles said, all of which are what I just stated. Our three primary beliefs. Now, of course, there's other things, but we've, as Christian witness of Jah, if you believe like I do, you can go to our site, cwjah.org for more info, a lot of information, actually. And you believe like I do, you know, all those other things that are taught in the Bible, they're important. Of course, we're accountable to our master, which is Jesus. He's the appointed Lord, the Messiah. He's sitting on the Father's throne. He has all authority and power. It's so strange when we talk to certain people, how they don't seem to understand what that means, right? Yeah, it means he can do everything. It means he, like the I said earlier, and we have a whole video on, people still don't understand. He has life in himself now. Why? So he can give it to others. Because just as he lives because of the Father, John 6:57, John 5:26, we live because of him. Exactly. So he makes the dead alive. He gives us eternal life. And we still get Trinitarians who can't understand it. Feel free to put your questions in the chat, of course. We've been destroying Sam Shamoon and his pathetic attempts to read the Trinity into the Bible, none of which ever work, right? And he's gone insane, as we know. Talk about a couple other things in a moment, and then your questions. But, you know, I don't recommend, if you're just trying to be a Christian person and live a good life and be normal, not get in arguments all the time, especially about metaphysics and things that, though we can prove to a point, right? When we talk about Dragon Church and all these other related pagan churches, they are so far gone from what the texts clearly state that, you know, I don't recommend you really get into that unless that's your calling, right? Everyone has a different calling. Paul makes that clear. Very clear from Jesus too, that the seed that he plants grows in different ways. And we're all different people, right? So not everybody is the exact same way. Okay, well, in the apologetic arena, which I don't really enjoy myself, I only did it because no one was doing it when I was with Watchtower, and someone had to do it. I can't just be in a group being attacked all the time and being told we're in a cult and don't believe in the right God and all this stuff. So I took it seriously. I still take it seriously, more seriously than I ever have before, because I believe it more than I ever have before. And I know a lot of you do too. You want to maintain that faith and that joy that you have in knowing what's actually going on, right? None of it really bothers me anymore. you reach a point where you've heard it all before, right? So it's not like new or shocking or staying with you kind of way like a movie about killing would, right? If you're a Christian, you go to the theater and you watch a movie like Friday the 13th or Halloween, you see all these curtain killers running around, chopping people up and acting, insane. Well, that stays with you if you do it too much, You put too much of that kind of horrific imagery and sound and terror in your mind, well, it's going to affect you. Similarly, we're not really meant to be arguing all the time. It's necessary today in many ways because, well, that's what the devil does, right? He's really good at dividing people up and getting you to think about things that aren't necessary to think about. And if you think about them, you'll realize, oh, even what they're saying isn't true or even established, right? So we're going to discuss in a moment a couple texts or issues related to texts, one being the Holy One. A couple introductory ideas here to get you guys started, and we'll look at your questions. The Holy One and whether or not that means Jesus is God. And text from Psalm 82, Jesus quotes in Matthew 21. We're going to take a look at those because they're often used by perverts like Sam and others who try to lie about the Bible because they don't have any basis for their doctrine, right? We understand, right? We understand they don't really have any other option but to, I guess, at this point, lie. But they're so zealous about it, it's kind of like, wow, passionate liars. So Dragon Side. Look at history. Watch the video 9-part series I did, 1st to the 4th. I think it makes sense. You're free to conclude however you want, but the text and the facts of history seem to fit. And you just wait until we go beyond it. 5th and following centuries, it just gets worse. Dragon Church. The Dragon Church is out of control, and it's been out of control ever since it took control of the seat of the woman's church, so to speak, and changed it. Yeah, not only changed it doctrinally, metaphysically, requiring it to be believed universally or you're a heretic. They changed the whole structure, right, of everything. Politically, how it was enforced and managed, and authorities were appointed to enforce it and or perv it out. The structures and public buildings in which churches, quote unquote, began to be built throughout, right, the empire and elsewhere as they began to spread paganism, right? This new perverted form of dragon church, right? The dragon dressed up like a lamb, going to wage war with the seed of the woman, right? They always tell us, hey, where were you guys? Where were we? Well, we know where you were, right? We can see exactly where you guys were. That's obvious, right? So there's no doubt there. Where were we? We were the people you were abusing, right? Exactly. But in among them, there were many we can show historically, all the way really from the time the pagan emperor took control, right? And before then. But, we can see you, so what were you doing? You were persecuting other people, Jews, Muslims, other people, and of course, people who didn't believe in your official pagan doctrine, which would be people like us. So what do you mean, where were we? Wherever you were, right? Wherever the carcass is, that's where the eagles are. You guys can figure that out, can't you? Well, then why can't you figure this one out? Gone. That's why. Now, if you've been watching Sam at all, we'll get to these two issues, right? They really involve, really both in this case, right? The whole Holy One of God, Psalm 8, Matthew 21. They involve two fallacies at least, right? A couple of them, more probably. Argument from silence and begging the question, right? These guys, I wanted to bring these two up to show you guys that, look, oftentimes they're just saying things. They've not established that it concludes the way they do for any stated historical reason, hence an argument from silence. And they end up using their conclusion as their argument because they don't have the aforementioned historical basis, anything in the text that shows an event where it is said very clearly, Holy One of God, if you're that, you're God, person of God, any one of those. It doesn't say either of those. So it's an argument from silence, it never happens. Then they use their conclusion, which isn't based on a historical event, argument from silence, and beg the question, right? Same thing with this whole Matthew 21 thing where the children cry out, And then he quotes Psalm 8, we're going to get to it right now. And he applies it to the Jews who get indignant at that and the whole Son of David, Hosanna thing, right? It's all of it. The whole rejection of him as the Messiah, it's all of it. It's been happening the whole time. And leading up all the way to the time when he was brought before him in the Sanhedrin, right? They can't figure it out, right? They can't figure John 8 out. It's right in front of them, all over the place. Gone. So we'll get to that in a moment, but before we do, I'll welcome everybody officially. Well, we'll do a couple hours here or however long it goes. Now, I'm going to say also, I'll recommend, unless it's something you do, right? Some of us are just, we're in it. It's what we can handle it, and we don't collapse with uncertainty and from all these pervouts around us, people going crazy. Right? It's like, it's the same with college or something else. I see nothing wrong. I think if you want to pursue any vocation, you want to pursue it, you should do whatever you need to do to obtain what you need to get and become the best you can. But not everyone can handle a college level biology class, right? Or chemistry class or geology class or an anthropology class or related class that would in any way challenge your worldview, right? So some of us are capable of handling that and absorbing it and thinking through it and realizing, okay, well, that only means this and that still doesn't change that. And so here we are. Not everyone is like that. A lot of people don't like to be burdened with all this stuff. It's a lot of noise often. And I agree. That's why I said we only promote 3, essentially. There's everything else, but that's what you're responsible for. We just don't judge and condemn other people over anything but those 3. Or unless you sin against anyone, obviously, that we can show, hey, what's going on, right? Matthew 18. So we're trying to make it easy for everyone to actually live their life and be a Christian and believe actually what we can show is taught explicitly. Not rely on these pagans, not take the easy way out and join the Dragon Church or any of its bastard children, right? Enforcing all this paganism, all this idolatry, trying to get us involved in all these arguments and debates, right? We'll do it. We've done it. Jesus, the apostles did, but that's not our feature. We do that, we're gonna make it harder for other people to believe eventually. But we do. The Trinity is a big deal. I'm very deep in it. A lot of you are. So, we do it regularly because it's just easier to manage that way instead of having to deal with it just all the time. Boom. Join us Thursday. Well, we're gonna talk about it here. So I think it's been a useful addition to our schedule, in addition to our Saturday show, where we come together and talk about all kinds of things. I will be here this Saturday, Christian Witness of Jah Live Discussion 57. We're going to go back to Solus Veritas. Okay, so if you are interested in the divine name and how that relates to Solus Veritas in the Bible, you want to tune in on Saturday, okay? All right, so we're talking about the Trinity today, though. Unless it relates to the Trinity, no divine name today. You say hi to everyone. Oh, real quick. Right. So if you saw, so no one, I'm not ever promoting or thinking you need to, like, for example, watch all these Trinity videos and watch Sam and people like him, even if I do, right, this is what we're involved in this. So take from it what you can use. If you're not really that heavy into it, we'll mix in as much as we can on the non-debate, non-pagan doctrine level, okay? And I think we do a good job of that, actually. We've got the site, right? I've got something really special coming soon. Oh, yeah, you want to pay attention to the community section. We got big news coming up beyond today and Saturday. So, yeah, big things coming. Oh, yeah. Just trust me on that. Anyway, if you're involved with things like Sam and all this paganism and perversion, well, then he has gone completely. We always talk about new levels, right? Because that's the thing. That's what it is with Sam and some others. But Sam is like all the time, right? Just when you think he's maxed out the insanity meter, right? He's just like, no, you need more gauge. You need a bigger gauge. I can go past that, no problem. And then boom, he's like, whoa. So he's gone insane. We've seen this, right? Now, I do have a video I'm going to be doing. I was going to do a series of clips like I talked about last time, one of my last videos. about the non-Trinitarian perversions, like obvious false doctrine, right? Open defiance of the Bible in Athanasius, just in what we've read so far, right? I was going to do that to help the pagan prince out because, and he's pagan because of Trinity, but, he's not as pagan as Sam. We talked about it. He's on our side, though, so, But Sam attacked him, went crazy. And I thought for a minute, well, because Sam's been lying about me so much and been so mean to me, maybe I'll give the pagan prince some stuff here. I thought Sam would go a little more crazy on that, fathers and Athanasius. But then he went in a little bit different direction. He did talk about it. He's gone. Well, pagan prince doesn't care about this stuff. That's obvious to me from what I've been hearing from him. And, these guys are gone. It's so pathetic, isn't it, how they have destroyed the image that so many people have of Christianity, right, with their and this has been going on since the 4th century and even before, right? These guys, just like even in the 1st century when the Christians were dealing with it, the damage that the dragon and those with him do in misrepresenting the Christ and the seed of the woman and God is pretty incredible, right? Look at Sam, right? I mean, so I was going to help pagan prince out. I thought, give him some non-Trinitarian stuff that won't offend him because he's Trinitarian, we're not. But maybe he could use it with Sam. But that didn't materialize really. Now I'm still going to do that video. I have it all. I have all the errors. I'm going to do a whole new video though. Instead of separate clips from my prior Athanasius videos, I'm just going to do a new 30-minute video, and I'll go back over each of the non-Trinitarian blasphemies of Athanasius to this point. So that'll come maybe tomorrow, tomorrow or pretty soon, within the next several days, okay? So non-Trinitarian perversions of Athanasius, something like that, coming soon. I'm not going to copy Christian Prince, though. I said I was going to, add him in when I posted the video. He doesn't care. And I'm not, I just initially thought, well, this might be more of a bigger deal. And he doesn't know the church fathers and Sam's a pervert. So we're not going to let him get it. We got to deal with Sam, right? He's gone. And we hold out hope. No, but outside of a miracle, we have to accept that Sam is gone, right? And it's strange, right? It's so over in so many ways, right? We've documented it so well. I don't know. And now he's collapsed in so many ways, right? Now I'll get to the things in a moment. I was talking about just in general. We already know basically about what I'm saying with Sam. But if you've been paying attention to him in this whole fiasco, anyway, I'm not going to get involved with the Christian Prince, Pagan Prince. I'm going to put up that Athanasius video, okay? I'll add Sam. Either way. Oh, he's a pervert. I don't even care about him anymore. I mean, I do and I don't, right? Because at this point, he's been destroyed. We've wrecked him in so many ways, it's embarrassing. He wrecked himself, right? He embarrassed himself, disgraced himself by publicly admitting he hadn't watched videos he's going to respond to, basically obviating the need for me to even continue doing them because, well, he's not watching them, right? So he's just a pervert. He's just trying to take up my time and have me say the same things I already told him a long time ago and already destroyed him on. And I can do it even better now and have a permanent record. So fine. Other than that, though, he's gone, right? And this is ridiculous. So, nevertheless, you've been watching Sam because of his insanity and this whole explosion over his pagan pope. No, although now Sam is his own pope because he doesn't follow this pope. And so now Sam is going to do what he wants, right? He's bad Catholic. That's his new nickname, one of them. And misleading all these people, right? Lying to them about idols and all this stuff. But, he's also a pervert. So if you've been watching him, though, right, if you're on the level I am and you're like, okay, I'm going to deal with, now that I'm dealing with him, I'm going to make sure I fully understand the depth of his perversion, what he's doing right now. Gone, right? He had this one lady up there the other day, Kay, who I guess the Christian Prince had on it and kind of insulted her, but answered her, and she was mean to him because she's, So Sam abused her, right? He brought her up, and it was humiliating, right? Initially, he did a good job in using her against Pagan Prince, but once he brought her up and he played the Pagan Prince's insult clip of her, and she played the victim all over again, After that, Sam just went insane, right? He re-victimized the victim, who really, I don't know if it was a victim because she called him was antagonistic to Christian Prince. These guys are perverts. Oh yeah, they'll do it all. I told you, no line they won't cross. But then Sam just humiliated her for like 15 minutes, right? Kept her up there and just went crazy, maybe longer. It was a long time he kept her up there after the initial, hey, this lady was abused by Christian Prince. He's a bad guy. If he would have just stopped right there, he would have had a good point. But then he went insane. He couldn't handle it. Didn't he go crazy? For those of you who saw it, insane. He even to the point where the woman Kay was like, well, we want to be forgiving, Sam, right? She actually started to stand up for the Christian Prince, who she was obviously there to insult and humiliate. But Sam went so insane that she actually started to like, hey, we kind of need to be forgiving, right? It was unbelievable. So, and then today, everybody. Okay, right after this, I'm moving on. I'm moving on from Sam, all of it. Anything we need to deal with, we got all videos coming up if we want to, gone, right? We're going to do several months minimum, just regular shows. He's gone. So there's really nothing there. He doesn't respond to us. He doesn't watch our videos. Proverbs 18:13, humiliation, disgrace, gone. This is who they are. Then they attack each other. Exactly. They love to argue, debate, and destroy each other. Worship the same God on the same side, basically, but not really, right? Because they're all on their own side in the end. They all have their little perverted view that if you don't agree with them, I'm over here, you're over here. It's all this garbage, right? They don't have any, after almost 2,000 years, they haven't figured out how to deal with all this stuff. And yeah, it's like, well, what the master say? What don't you understand? Who's Jesus? No, he's not that. He's not that. He's this, Son of God. Right, we believe in him. Sent for Savior, 1 John 4:14. Okay, so with Sam, though, went totally insane. Went insane, abused this woman by publicly humiliating her, and just going after everybody, right? Just insulting everybody in the most despicable ways, right? That Sam, but he had a living victim right there. He was literally abusing her live in front of everyone, like spiritually torturing her, right? It was bad. I felt, Sam, you get the shame. It's beyond all of that too. And it's just like, what do we do here? Why is this happening, right? How did we get to this point? Great, he's a good arguer. But did you guys see all the other stuff? What did you Protestants not understand about that 20, 30 years ago when we pointed out to you? Well, what do you Catholics and Eastern Orthodox don't understand now that we've been, right? Oh, only when he turns on you. That's the only time you perverts will understand. And then today, right? It's just so beyond everything I've seen. Today was beyond it all. He basically, right, after like minute 30 of his show, if you just start listening, his most recent stream, he's probably doing right, he's gone. He basically fell in love with a man. Oh, yes, he did. Bo Branston, right? He showed a picture. He started talking about why he's still in the Catholic Church and not in the Eastern Orthodox. And it all comes down to him being in love with Bo Branson. This guy who he went on for like 5 or more minutes, right? Kept coming up, but it was like a pretty steady love fest and infatuation. It was growth. It was Sam. Okay, so, it's one thing to say, to that one man looks and says, yeah, he's a handsome guy, and, yeah, he's in good shape, but what I heard today from Sam Shamoon in his video about his feelings toward Bo Branston or Branson, whatever. Okay. You shouldn't even be having me say that name, you pervert. And here you are telling everybody the reason you're in the Catholic Church is because of how handsome Bo Branson is. You literally started lusting over a man today. And if you think I'm kidding, if you think I'm exaggerating, I challenge you to go to Sam's current or whatever live stream he just finished or is doing now. Listen after minute 30, 31 for like 5 minutes, and you'll be blown. Your mind you'll be like, what's going on, right? I was too. I can't even believe it's gone. He kept doing it. I'm like, Sam, what's happening here? Why do you keep saying this? Why do you keep saying and then telling the women? He even said, he said this. He said live earlier, just within the last hour or two. He said, I'm starting to question his sexuality. Okay, I know ultimately, was he kidding? I challenge you to listen to him, okay? Because I'm here to tell you right now, there isn't a heterosexual man alive that would go on that kind of rant about another man. No, and no, okay? No. Not even about your father, right? It was very sexual, he even brought it up in sexual context. Yes, he did. Homosexual. Whether he was ultimately joking or not, he did it for like 3 to 5 minutes, overkilled it in every way, revealed thoughts. See, when you talk like that about someone, remember what Jesus said? It's not what goes in you. It's what comes out of you that defiles you. Because what comes out of you is from the heart. The mouth speaks the heart. This pervert's sitting here going off after just going crazy, insulting a bunch of Muslims, right? It's so bad. Crazy, gone. So there's no one he won't attack. The fact that anyone is even promoting him tells you right there, right? I mean, if you need to know who's on the broad road, well, it's not that hard to see. You're listening to a pervert, a maniac, and who's lusting after men while claiming to be a Christian. And what else is it you need to know? Oh, pagan doctrine? Oh, idolatry? Oh, the fact that he prays to people who aren't God or Jesus? And, well, we can keep going, right? Publicly humiliates himself and everybody else he's ever known and comes in contact with. Exactly. So this is the one, right? He's a good arguer. So it's like Satan. And again, you need to look beyond what you're seeing because there's more. And while you need to act on what you see in many ways, right? Just know that there's more. Our battle isn't directly against Sam. It's against who's using Sam and why he's still being used at all. Dragon Church and their bastard children. Perverts. So they went crazy today and basically admitted he's a homosexual or has such strong homosexual thoughts. He's got to be conflicted then, okay? Something is wrong. Something is definitely wrong with Sam. In any case, let's see who we got here. We'll say hi to everyone. Yeah, it was pretty bad. You should listen to that just to see what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not joking. It was not appropriate. He even got the women. He involved the women and said, women, that he not only publicly repeated for a long time in an inappropriate tone and manner this lust after this guy he kept showing, making everybody think these inappropriate thoughts, right? Then he got the women. He's called out the women and said, women, you better take a look. He started to get them thinking lustfully. And I saw XJW Laura, shame. Okay, we do this for pervs and wannabe pervs or people who are perving out. Because you're with Sam, you perved it. And I saw you respond to him, Laura. Now, you were moderate, unlike Sam. You said he's okay. That's good. Because Sam, obviously, he's perved out in some way that we're now seeing more manifestly, right? It should tell you, Laura. Plus the paganism, right? So, and then also, Laura, he's got you thinking bad thoughts. He had you evaluating this other supposed Christian man in a perverted manner. Now, so you see, now you need to get away from Sam. Or maybe you're there for a reason. I don't know. We'll see. Morning, son. Good to see you. George Plowman. Very nice to see you. I know it's early. Appreciate that. Gabriel Dill. Czar. Pumped up. Lalo 26, good to see you. Back TR. What up to you? Sikwa SS. Please stop eating and chewing. It irritates some of us and distracts this beautiful study. Well, no. I'm in my home, Sikwa, and we're not partaking tonight. It's a Trinity discussion show, and it's not your show or channel. So for you to come here and tell me that I can't eat or have something, you don't know if I've been out working all day, if I'm just coming in to give you the last, bit I have and just, to have a little snack before I have something more. You don't know nothing. That's why we're going to perv you out right here. Gone. So there's one gone. Charles Ellis, was the best religion true to the Bible? Well, that's what you need to find out, Charles. Oh, who's that, Gabriel? Okay, so Charles, looking for answers. Well, Jesus says, by your fruits you'll know them, Charles. So does that mean you go and you ask people, hey, who's showing the fruits? Or does it mean that you look at the people and you evaluate the fruits? So why are you coming here asking us, who's the religion true to the Bible? Don't you think most religions, if not all, who claim to follow the Bible will say that? And again, you're supposed to be looking at the fruits. So what fruits are you looking at? Let's see what else Charles is saying here. He might be perved out. If I'm told to preach, do I just tell about the gospel of the Lord to people I meet? Charles, this is a trend. Did you read the thumbnail, Charles? Did you not even consider that? So you're asking questions totally unrelated to the theme, and then you say, why the topic on Sam? Well, because you're a pervert and you don't understand anything and you keep asking stupid questions like Sam. Sam does the same thing on the Trinity, only he's more popular than you, but you're both perverts. So we'll remove you. Gone, right? All these whack jobs, right? Spiritual sodomites, they show up and they just start sodomizing themselves. Like that one video I showed, this is terrible, I know, but it happened. This one guy, it was on my yeah, he took a cucumber. He did. It's a true story. Look it up. Man sodomizes himself in parking lot with cucumber from lunch pail. He does it twice. It's what these guys do spiritually. And that's why they have to go. It's disgusting. You perverts. False doctrine, stupid questions, and you can't even read a thumbnail and participate in the show. So we know for a fact, Charles, the true religion has nothing to do with you. That's for sure. Exactly, Gabriel. Sam is related to the Trinitarian position, and he's been going crazy. And if you don't realize Sam's a figure right now of discussion for the worst possible reasons, right, then you're even stupider than I thought. And of course, you do know this. You're just being a pervert. That's why you're gone. Sam is not worth any of this. He's a pervert and a liar. Do you think Satan is worth any of the attention and honor he's getting? Of course not. He's a liar and a pervert. But the Father allows these things to happen so that these perverts and liars go all the way up and then boom, right? Gone. That's the end of you. Right? Now, I didn't call Sam homosexual, Czar. Sam openly declared homosexual feelings for a man today. Now, he even openly said it was making him question his feelings. And again, if he had just said that off the cuff real quick and kind of with a little chuckle and okay, no, listen to it, okay? Don't misquote me. Go listen to it and hear it for yourself. Men don't talk about other men like that. Not for 5 or more minutes, inciting your own lust, improper thoughts of sodomy, questioning your manhood openly, telling the ladies to lust after this guy. You are, right? That's why I say, right? How many levels does this guy have left, right? How far is this going to go? Anyway, we'll keep destroying this pagan doctrine, right? We'll destroy all their church fathers. I got a show coming up on Ignatius and article on, We'll just keep wrecking this pagan Trinity, right? Destroying their fake Christology, their false Jesus, their fake Jesus, their two-natured, later 5th century Chalcedonian non-biblical Jesus. It's blasphemy. They reject the Jesus of the Bible. They reject the firstborn creation, firstborn Son of God, and they import paganism. That's the dragon who was the wild beast acting like a lamb. It's all right there and documented, consistent with history. Oh yeah, he's out of control, Czar. You got to hear it. Just start after it's minute 30. Don't do it right. I mean, it's not important right now. It'll still be there. He's not going to edit it out. He's a pervert. Everyone heard it. Focus on this now, though, but later. You want to see? I couldn't believe it. I was pretty blown away. Okay, so I think we got rid of the perverts. Let's talk about a couple items. Let's talk about this whole Holy One of God, okay? Let me bring up the Bible Hub here. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's Trinity Exposed live show. We talk about Trinitarian stuff here. We just finished a whole destruction series on Sam, and we have many of them, right? He's relevant because he's their number one guy. But in terms of us, right, we've destroyed him. We've offered to debate him almost numerous times. He chickens out, he lies, hides, all the games he does with a lot of people. We're not going to play those games. I'm not. You want to play with Sam? Go ahead. You go play with Sam and enjoy it. After what I heard yesterday and today, and just him disgracing himself yet again by attacking his own fellow Trinitarians, abusing a Trinitarian woman who probably deserved it because she's a pervert too, right? She's an idol worshiper. She's a Mary worshiper. She's fixated on Mary, right? Like they all are, many of them anyway. In ways that are inappropriate, right? We're going to talk about appropriate honor and love for Mary. We're talking about their inappropriate behavior. The way he abused her, right? Kept her on live while he insulted all these people. It was so wild. It was beyond a lot of things I've seen from Sam, right? He's got a lot of really world record horrific instances, but it was up there. And then today, right, the homo stuff, that's the end right there. When I start to see you're a pervert, a liar, a Bible rapist, and now you're inciting yourself with sodomy thoughts and getting the women that are depending on you to teach them. Oh, it's so beyond everything. I can't believe it. Mm-hmm. So we take a look, for example, well, what should we do first? Let's do the Holy One. And then we'll do the Psalm 8 and Matthew 21. And then we'll see if you guys have any questions, okay? So, the first text that used that? Was John 6. Let's go to John 6:65. I'm bring you guys up. So this whole question of whether Jesus as the Holy One of God, which we're going to read right now, means he's, again, Yahweh or part of a Trinity or God. Now, again, it has to mean for them a person of God or a person of Yahweh, the Trinity. There is never a time when the word God in any of its forms can apply to the Father, Son, Holy Spirit and individually mean what it actually means all the time, a God or the God. No, it has to mean a person of that God, okay? It can never mean that. I have told you before, it never does. They just reinterpret all the time. And because we're hearing the word God or Father, Son, you don't catch them on it. And they do it with a lot of other things too, right? Well, I don't want to get off the subject. So let's stay on this. So John 6. Right. So Trinitarians have been saying, I've gotten a couple comments and email or comments and messages where like they're obsessed with this whole, he's the Holy One of God. Yahweh is the Holy One of Israel. So, Trinity, right? And so when they make that kind of argument, right, because there is no text, this is why it's an argument from silence, okay? Claiming that because Jesus is called the Holy One and God is called the Holy One means Jesus is a person of the Trinity, or we'll just say God equal to the Father, which again can only mean a person of the Trinity, not an individual God or deity, right? So even like with the word deity, when they say we deny the deity of Jesus, they don't mean Jesus as a God or God. No, never. They mean we're denying he's a person of the Trinity. Always. So this is so important, and this shows you how pervasive their perversions and lies have been. This is satanic stuff here. Right? This is deep, deep deception here. It's very deeply embedded because the dragon's been in control of this stuff and enforcing it through all this threat of heresy and condemnation and just punishment. It's what he does. So John 6, right? Let's first establish Jesus as the Holy One of God, or the Holy One, right? They totally miss it. They don't understand he's the Holy One of God, right? Whether he's, and of course in the New Testament, right, we have texts, for example, in Acts chapter 9, verse 32, where Christians are called the Holy Ones. That's just one of many, okay? It uses the Greek article right there, just like here in regards to Jesus. So there's nothing that says anywhere in the Old or New Testaments, there's no historical event, narration, or anything that says if you're called the Holy One, you're God, right? Or even a person, which is what it means. Well, let's just say God, though, which, again, that to them has to mean a person of God, not God individually. So we're granting something already. But let's focus on this point of Holy One, okay? So there's nothing there. They're just saying, well, because God is called the Holy One, some even say, well, he's the only one called that. No, he's not. I'm going to show that to you as well. But again, there's no argument or anything historically narrating or telling us if you're called the Holy One, you're equal with God, or you're on the same, nothing like that, okay? They're just saying that. And that part, when they just say that because they're both called the Holy One, they're both part of a Trinity or God, that's begging the question. And it's using their conclusion as their argument. Being called the Holy One means you're God, or a person of the Trinity equal to other persons of the Trinity. Jesus and Jehovah of the Old Testament are both called the Holy One, therefore they are both God. The only problem is there is no premise establishable from anything historical, such as a narration, like I said, argument from silence, that can be used to show, yeah, only if you're that, are you called that. That's not in existence. So it's an argument from silence, and a subsequent, meaning after the argument from silence, begging the question, using your conclusion as your argument, which is a fallacy. And it's a circular argument. They do it all the time. Sam's the worst and the best at it. Meaning he's the worst because he does it the most, but he's the best because he's really good at it. Right? You don't see it. He knows he's going to get a lot of those you're not going to catch. From what I can see of Sam, he does it so often. Either he's just addicted to it, assuming his argument, and many of them are, or he just doesn't think you're going to catch him that many times, right? He just, statistically, he's going to get so much more through by the time you catch on to what he's doing, unless you start out catching him, right? It's the danger you run. Anyway, John 6:65. So it's a double fallacy argument. There's nothing that establishes what they're claiming is true, and then their conclusion is assumed as the argument. John 6:65. Jesus wanted to say, this is why I told you, no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled them. Verse 66. From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. You don't want to leave too, do you? Jesus asked the 12. Let me make this a little bigger. There we go. Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Verse 69, we have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. Hagios to Theou. So, now, and of course, in this whole context, Jesus is talking about things that clearly show he's not God, right? And just throughout John, as we've discussed. But Trinitarians claim, well, he's the Holy One. Yahweh in the Old Testament's Holy One. Again, double fallacy. Note also here, Jesus is called the Holy One of God. It doesn't show the Greek here. We can bring it up. Let me see, will that bring it up? You get the, what I said is the actual Greek. I checked it before the show. Hagios to Theou. What was verse 67, I believe. No, it's 68. I'm sorry. Oh, no. It was 69. You are the Holy One of God. Hagios to Theou. Okay, so what Trinitarians failed to include in their presentation of their doubly fallacious argument is the fact that Jesus is the Holy One of God. Okay, in the Old Testament, when God's called the Holy One, he's never called, or is that description qualified by of God, right? Because he is God, right? So this right here shows the subordinate nature and relationship between God as the Holy One and the Holy One of God. That changes it entirely, as do numerous other descriptions that Trinitarians misuse and argue in a similar way. They're qualified similarly, showing, again, they're gone. The use of the term God itself, right? So like we just talked about a moment ago. So, but in any case, that's where they try to argue he's the Holy One of God. Now, we just take a look. We go to Numbers. First of all, let me just show real quickly. This whole Old Testament thing, that God, the lie, the non-existent narrative or event in the Old Testament claiming that only God can be called the Holy One is defeated not only by the fact that doesn't exist, but by the existence of texts that show that's not true at all. So we have Numbers chapter 16. Numbers 16 and verse 7. This is Yahweh talking, and put in them fire and put in them incense before Yahweh tomorrow. Well, I'm not sure who it's talking. I should take that back. Let's just quickly establish the context. I apologize. I don't want to speculate if I'm not absolutely sure who's talking here. 16:7. Moses heard this. He fell face down. He said to Korah and his followers, in the morning, get up. You, Korah. Moses also said, okay, it is Moses. You, Korah, verse 6, you, Korah, your followers are to do this. Take censers tomorrow and put burning coals and incense in them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far. So this is Moses telling Korah that the man Yahweh chooses is the one who is holy. It really says the Holy One. If you look at the Hebrew, it's explicit. It shall be that the man whom chooses Yahweh is HaKadosh, the Holy One. That is the equivalent of hagios. Now, the Greek text that I looked at didn't use the article, just hagios, form of hagios, but it doesn't matter. I believe it actually is hagios, because grammatically that's how it should fit here, if it's following the Hebrew. A predicate description for the subject, the man. So hagios is here without the article. We could take a look at it, but I already checked it, and it just doesn't use the article. That doesn't matter. The Hebrew does. So just because the translation later doesn't change the fact that the equivalent of hagios is HaKadosh. And that is exactly what Moses said the man who would be chosen by Yahweh would be called. So, we know, again, it's a double fallacy that's contradicted by the evidence. Let's take a look at Psalm 16. We're discussing the whole use of the description, the Holy One, the fact that it's a double fallacy by Trinitarians who argue from silence because there's nothing historical in the Old or New Testaments related to anything said or any event that would show that being called the Holy One means you're God or a person of the Trinity, equal with the Father, which itself involves its own assumptions, but just sticking with the issue, that's never done. So it's an argument from silence, and that ends up begging the question by assuming its conclusion, it's his argument. Yahweh and Jesus are called the Holy One, therefore they're equal part of a Trinity. We've shown that's not the case with Numbers 16:7. The man to be chosen by Yahweh is called HaKadosh, which is the equivalent of hagios. So it's not only a double fallacious argument, but contradicted by the evidence, including Psalm 16, 3, I'm sorry. As for the saints who are on the earth, they are, and the excellent ones, all my delight. As for the saints who are on the earth, all of them. Li Kedoshim, plural form of Kadosh. Doesn't use the article here, but it did use the article in Numbers 16:7. Now let's look at the the Greek. The Greek here, as you'll see, does use the article, right? So again, it's not always necessary to use the article to say the exact same thing. Sometimes it does make a difference, like if there's two separate beings together, like John 1:1, other texts, or where they're being compared one type with other types, like John 10, 30 through 36, where Jesus doesn't use the article with weos. That's why it's so significant with Kelly and that whole thing, because he's comparing himself with the other sons of God. Yeah, it's not in those other texts. So there are situations where it's very important, but in general, it's not always necessary. They basically mean the same things, whether it's terms like God or the Holy One, Holy One. So in Numbers 16:7, you had HaKadosh, but you had just Hagios in the Greek. And in the Hebrew of Psalm 16:3, you just had the plural of Kadosh, or Holy One, without the article. But in the Greek of Psalm 16:3, it does use the article. Just like in Acts 9:32, text I referenced earlier, and many others in the New Testament for the apostles and others, and for Jesus, like we read from John 6. It says, the holy ones, the ones in his earth. Tois hagios, tois en te geautu. So there's no basis at all for this kind of argument or discussion. Let's take a look at one more last text in Zechariah. But because the Trinitarians are desperate, right? I mean, their religions are collapsing. The Dragon Church is being exposed. Their number one apologist is a catastrophe, right? He's going on a just, even for him, bizarre rampage of blasphemous destruction, right? Very interesting. Of course, we hold out hope. We don't hate Sam, but he's gone. So what are we supposed to do, right? We look at the Hebrew, if we look at Zechariah 14:5 now. And you shall flee my valley mountain shall reach the valley mountain to Azal, and yes, you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Thus will come Yahweh, my God, and all the saints with you. All call the saints. Kedoshim, no article, with you. Okay, well, if it's all of them, you perverts who make this argument, that includes Jesus, right? You know why? He's the Holy One of God. You understand? Exactly. So he would have to be one of those with the other holy ones of God. Exactly, because they're all with him. So how could they be anything else but holy ones of God? That's what that means. They're his holy ones. So it's very obvious. All of them. Does all mean all? Is this another? Do we have to add other here for you Trinitarian perverts who don't want to include the Son as one of the holy ones with God, who was with God in the beginning? John 1:1, the word Holy One, a God, with God, Son of God. All the sons of God who were in the beginning with God. Job 38, before the earth was made and as it was made and applauded. All the sons of God. All the angels of God. Right, so the word being a name, not a description for an abstraction like these perverts, Middle Platonists, and later Roman pagans want us to think. No. It's a name. Revelation 19:11. What uncreated abstraction has a name? Exactly, because he's not about an uncreated abstraction. They just get hung up on the word because they're perverts and they can't understand the Bible. Their pagan theology gets in their way, Trinitarian and non. So they freak out and can't handle it. Get confused with what a word out of someone's mouth, even God's, is, and word as a name. As the name of a son of God who was in the beginning with God, because John knew that was his name, and that all the sons of God were with God in the beginning. Exactly. What's so hard to understand? The whole purpose John wrote the book was to show us he was the Son of God. Well, if all the sons of God are with God in the beginning, like Job 38 teaches, whole video on it, destruction of Sam, lied about in the beginning, totally destroyed him. The word being in the beginning with God would have to mean he's one of the sons of God. Exactly. That's why he's called a God. John 10:33 through 36. Jesus proved it himself. We believe him. Right? No Trinity. So this should show you guys plenty to use with these Holy One of God liars who want to pervert the Bible's teaching with a pagan emperor who set up false gods and idols and other pagan Middle Platonist Christian writers who defy the Bible, not just on things related to Jesus and God, but even God's own name. tune in this Saturday as we talk about these Middle Platonist perverts like Justin Martyr and others who not only failed to understand the difference between Greek philosophy and the Bible, but that God has a name, right? Exactly. No, it has nothing to do with your paganism, Justin. We'll get to it. I know a lot of you like Justin, some of the things he has said to have said, but look, let's read him in context, okay? It's real obvious. I don't think many of you have read the hymn that way. Either way, Psalm 8. Another text used by the great pervert and others in their quest for lying, right? To try to see how much lying they can do about the Bible. Real quickly, we'll check the perv out. Excuse me. Let's just make sure. Okay. Looks like you guys are okay. Tarantula Clan. Nice to see you. Anyone else? Apologize if I missed you. Okay, so let's get back to the analysis of the second other point, argument I wanted to bring up before I look at your questions, if you have any. This whole, it's another double fallacy. Like with the whole Holy One of God argument, when Trinitarians cite Matthew 21, where Jesus quotes Psalm 8:2 in response to the Jews who are indignant at the way that he's being treated by the crowds, and in particular the children, being honored as the son of David in the name of Yahweh, as we'll see. They do the same thing they do on the Holy One of God argument. They argue from silence. Namely, they don't have anything historical in the Bible where it says that if God prepares praise involving you or someone not him, then that means that person's God, right? That person's equal with God. And so when the son of David, Jesus, comes in, and then Jesus quotes text from Psalm 8:2 where it says Yahweh prepares praise. We'll get to it, the grammar. He quotes that text in Matthew 21, as we're going to see. And Trinitarians allege that somehow proves he's God or equal to the Father. Again, it has to ultimately mean he's part of a Trinity. That's the only thing it can mean for them. So it would have to mean God in that sense. But just setting that sense aside for now, focusing on the argument that Jesus' quotation of Psalm 8:2 and Matthew 21 proves he's equal to or God, is an argument from silence. There's nothing historical anywhere in the Old or New Testaments that says if you're involved with God's preparation of praise coming out of the mouth of children, that you are what Trinitarians say. They are the only ones saying that. And then they're just saying it and quoting these two accounts we're going to read and saying, well, what about that? Well, what about it? Well, why can't the Father prepare praise out of the mouth of children involving, as is true throughout the Old Testament, people all over the place? Who do you think's being praised throughout the Old Testament and all these things? Why do you think he's doing all this? Right? So you don't think that the Messiah coming in his name, in whom he actually is, we'll read it, doing his works from preparing praise, would qualify? That would be my response. What are you talking about? It's an argument from silence. Nothing says that in doing this makes them equal. And why wouldn't this be done involving the Messiah of all people? Right? And then it again, just like with the Holy One of God, it begs the question by assuming its conclusion after the argument from silence. It's pretty wild how perverted and mutative their fallacies are becoming. Let's read Psalm 8. Let's just start here. Oh, I'm sorry. Psalm 8, verse 2. Out of the mouth of babes and nursing infants. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Psalm 8:2. Look at the Hebrew first. Out of the mouth of babes and nursing infants, you have ordained strength. So this is quoted in the Greek. We're going to focus on the Greek because the words are exact. The same verb is used. So it's really, that's the key verb in the New Testament, the Greek verb. But I wanted you to at least see the Hebrew first. So this is what it says, right? It's the psalmist. If we go back to the first verse. To the chief musician on the instrument of Gath, a psalm of David. Yah, O our Lord, how excellent your name is in all the earth, who have set your glory above the heavens. So this is David talking to Yahweh. Out of the mouth of babes, you have ordained strength. Okay. And so I'll just show you the Greek words real quickly. You'll see when we then go to the account in Matthew, they're the same. So right here, let's see if I can make it. This is what you're going to see in Matthew 21. It's the same words. It may be variants and things, but it's basically exactly the same. And the key verb, it's right here. Katertiso. Okay? So let's go. That's the verb that in the Hebrew was you have perfected or made ready. It means to make ready. You have prepared. Let's go to Matthew 21. Matthew 21, and we're going to read, we'll start reading in verse 6. We'll read through verse 16, okay? Oh, I have this on. Oh, it's in there. I'll say we'll go to this. It's important you see the grammatical detail. Okay. Well, let's read it in the regular translation, and then we'll look at verse 16, okay? It'll be easier. Verse 6, NIV. The disciples went and did as Jesus instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Verse 9, the crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. It's a quotation. Well, it could be a quotation from several texts. Whether or not they have it right here is another question. But we already know, right? Micah 5, 1 through 4. The Messiah is going to come in the name of Yahweh. We'll read it. So, 21:9 was where we were. Hosanna to the Son of David. Hosanna means, like it says here, basically, a Hebrew expression meaning save, which became an exclamation of praise also. It basically means, please save. It's a plea for help, which makes complete sense. He's the Messiah, right? He's the one they're recognizing as the Son of David, right? The one foretold, who comes in the name of Yahweh, right there. That's exactly who they understood this to be. There was no confusion here. There's no reason at all not to ask him to please save them. He's the one sent forth to do just that in Yahweh's name. And then it says the same thing, Hosanna in the highest heaven, right? Asking heaven to save them as well. Why? Because again, it's Yahweh whose Messiah has come. We're going to go Micah 5 right after this reading. When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Verse 12, Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. Verse 13, it is written, Jesus said, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." Verse 14, the blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things he did, and the children shouting in the temple courts, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant. Verse 16, they said, "Do you hear what these children are saying?" They asked him. And then Jesus says, "Yes, have you never read? From the lips of children and infants, you, Lord, have called forth your praise." Now, notice, he's not referring to himself. He's referring to someone in the second person. Now, he's actually quoting the text directly, but he's not changing it to apply to himself. And notice also what they're indignant over is the children saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David." Well, why weren't they indignant at it when the children said, "Hosanna in the highest heavens," or highest heaven? Because that was to God. Whereas this part was to him as the Son of David. Exactly the one these indignant Jews rejected him as. He goes on to talk about in Matthew how they rejected him. And they bring him before the Sanhedrin before they put him to death and reject him as the Son of Man from Daniel, the Messiah. They accuse him. They even say, right, "Tell us plainly, are you the Christ or not?" Well, you see right here, they don't accept him. The whole point of their resisting him is they reject him as the Messiah, right? So obvious. That's the final straw that broke the high priest's back in the account before the Sanhedrin. So they're acknowledging him as that very figure that they don't accept him as. They're not even sure if that's who he is explicitly claiming to be, right? Because he's been kind of careful with their perv. Which is why later they say, "Look, tell us openly, are you or not?" And then once he does, that's it, right? So there is nothing here that is in any way related to anything historical in the Old Testament that says, if someone asks you to please save them, it says "Hosanna to you," and acknowledges you as the one coming in the name of the one who's in the highest heaven, right? There's nothing that says that would make you equal to the one who's in the highest heaven, in whose name you're coming. No, nothing. In fact, everything would indicate, and Jesus and Micah and other texts do indicate, that is the case. Everything here shows that the Trinitarians are not only arguing from silence, they have no historical narrative or basis for their position at all. They're begging the question by assuming their conclusion as their argument, which is in total defiance, like with the Holy One of God issue, with the explicit teachings of the text. It's true also with other terms and everything, really, right? It's like, when you think about it, again, as I said earlier with God, it's pretty bad. But in any case, So this term, if we go to, so let's go to Micah 5 first, though, just to show what it means, right? To come in the name of Yahweh, to be praised as the son of David versus praising and asking for help from the highest heaven. So that's why you can't let them argue from science or beg the question. You got to point out that the existing facts contradict their position. Game over. No Trinity. And we do this all the time, right? Micah 5, marshal troops now, sea of troops for a siege. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. Therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in labor bears a son, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. He, that one who will be ruler over Israel and come for me. See, this is what Sam also doesn't understand where it relates to Isaiah 40, verse 3, and other texts, where he misapplies them and says that it speaks of Yahweh himself coming. No, the Messiah is coming for him. Just like John came for Elijah. Exactly, that's what messengers of the covenant, angels of the great council do. But you're a pervert and you reject all that stuff, even though you agree it's true, just with Trinity. So here we are, discussing Trinity, exposing it. Right there, Sam. Out of you will come for me. Come for me. Well, what does that mean, you pervert? That's agency. How does anyone not see this? Who will be ruler over Israel? He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of Yahweh, in the majesty of the name of Yahweh, his God. So, in whose name, according to Matthew 21, 6 through 16, did the children and the people who were saying Hosanna to the Son of David, in whose name did they believe the Son of David came? Right here, right? Except it's a pervert translation that takes God's name from it. No. They knew he was the one who came in Yahweh's name. They also knew all these things and the fact that he would come for me. Let's take a look at a text that we also cited in response to Sam and his total destruction of his misrepresentation of Isaiah 43. If we go to 43, we already addressed that. See prior videos, multiple parts, full destruction of Sam and his lies and related issues. Verse 3, for I am Yahweh, your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. Never called the Holy One of God like Jesus is, because he's one of the all holy ones that we read from Psalm 16 and Zechariah 14. Exactly. That was specifically, I believe, from Zechariah 14. And then he says in verse 7, well, verse 6, I will say to the north, give them up. The south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. Right, it's not talking about the formation of the idols like you perverts don't understand. Every time you misapply text talking about the formation of idols to these beings, his sons and daughters, and that would include, of course, the Messiah. Everyone called by his name. Is Jesus called by his name? Is the angel of Yahweh in Exodus 23 called by his name? Exactly, no Trinity. He created them and us for his glory, you perverts. They lie all the time, don't they? It gets embarrassing when we have to read all these texts that show very clearly, right? And then, of course, the whole, if we go Let's go back to Matthew 21, because there's something we need to address here. Just the way sometimes these texts present the meaning of the Greek. Let's see, I think it was verse 16. Matthew 21:16. It's important you remember this. So 21:16, and he said to him, hear what these say. And Jesus says to them, yes, did you never read? It's quoting Psalm 8. Out of the mouth of babes and sucklings, you have prepared for yourself praise. See that right there? Now, most translations, if not all, I couldn't find one that actually says that, except right here in the Net Bible's analytical version. So this is this form here. The verb is katartizo, katertizo, and this is an aorist middle second person singular form. Aorist just basically means with relation to the narrative, it's past. So this happened in the past from the perspective of the author or the speaker. Usually. And so now it's a middle voice. Greek has 3 voices, passive, active, and middle. So sometimes the middle voice can have a reflexive quality and have the action sort of applying to the speaker or the subject. But that is not always the case, and it's not the case in the only other instance of this exact same verb form, second person singular, aorist, middle, katertizo. First, let's look at the other translations of this verse, Matthew 21:16. I don't believe that this is not consistent with the other use I'm going to show you in a moment, and it won't change anything anyway, because of what we've already been arguing and showing from Micah 5, for example, that the Messiah comes for Yahweh. It's explicit agency all over the place. The great pervert and those who lie like him just misrepresent Isaiah 43 and claim, well, that's the only text that ever talks about Yahweh coming in relation to John the Baptist, and so it has to prove Trinity. No, that's also an argument from silence and assuming your question, conclusion. It's another double fallacy is what it is. We've already destroyed it. He's just lying to everybody and keeping away from them the related texts of that exact same subject that prove agency and the surrounding context of that verse. So he's gone. Okay. But let me show you, first of all, the other verb use. This 2 times this is used in the New Testament. Here, Matthew 21:16. This katertizo, where the Bible Hub says in the analytical, you have prepared for yourself. I don't think that's accurate. It won't change anything ultimately. It just makes it a little more problematic when dealing with these perverts. Because, well, as we know, they misrepresent things, right? So this would be them saying, Jesus is quoting Psalm 8 saying that he's preparing the praise for himself. No. We're going to prove even more so that's exactly not the case. But we've already shown that he's coming for Yahweh, his God. So whatever usage he's making of Psalm 8, that never changes. And it's an argument from silence because they don't have any basis for saying that just because preparation of praise is done in relation to someone or to someone, that makes him equal to Yahweh, because that also happens to him. So if he prepares praise out of the mouth of children for himself and for other people, where's the text, historical narrative, or account in the Bible that says that means you're equal to God? It doesn't exist. It's an argument from silence. So nevertheless, either he's preparing the praise out of the mouth of children for whoever it is that is the one representing him, or for himself, and ultimately would be him anyway, right? As you're going to see, because it's all for him. That's the whole point of Philippians 2:9-11. everything, right? The highest level of acknowledgement and submission and worship to Jesus is to God the Father's glory. And it's temporally manifested for that purpose. So you could say the same thing. Could you not? I mean, is it not true that the Father, the one that's the subject of Psalm 8, 1 and 2, David, prepared praise for himself out of the mouth of all the children who believe in Jesus as the resurrected Lord to his glory? Of course. Does it change the fact that that praise he prepared for Jesus resurrected as the Lord is to his glory? Of course not. That's the whole point. See, it's an argument from silence and begging the question, as we've discussed. But they present this, right? They say, well, look, it's said of Yahweh in Psalm 8, and Jesus says this is fulfilled in him. Of course it is, because the account involves children who are praising him, and he's the son of David who's come in the name of Yahweh as God, which they all acknowledged in that very same account, as well as distinguishing between asking him to save them and asking the highest heaven to save them, which is basically what Micah 5, 1 through 4 teaches explicitly. One is coming in the name of the other on the earth. He's coming for Yahweh. Okay, so first let's take a look at the other verb where this is used. It's also about God doing something for Jesus. Hebrews 10:5. Let's look at the English, the multi on this. Because I don't think a lot of them, or even maybe any of them, use that. Yourself. Translate the middle voice that way. So, New International. You have called forth your praise. Okay. I guess that's pretty much the same thing. You have taught in the Living Bible, Sam's favorite Bible. English Standard. You have prepared praise. See? No middle voice component and a reflexive sense. Right? Nothing bringing the praise that he prepares back toward him, like you see in the NIV, or right here. You have called forth your praise. English Standard. You have prepared praise. No middle voice. Bringing the middle voice it is middle voice. It just doesn't always involve that quality of bringing it back upon the subject like that. New American Standard. You have prepared praise for yourself. Okay, so they definitely do. King James. Thou hast perfected praise. Holman Christian Standard. You have prepared praise from the mouths of children. International Standard. You have created praise. Created praise, huh? Net Bible. You have prepared praise for yourself. Okay, so that takes it also in that sense. Let's look at Hebrews 10:5. The only other use of this form of kater tizo, perfect or prepare. Hebrews 10:5. Therefore, when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but a body you prepared for me. Right? And here's the exact same verb, katertizo. And it wouldn't make any sense in this context, right? Because it's a text being quoted from the Old Testament where the Messiah is talking to God, preparing a body for him. So no reflexive quality there. New Living, you have given me a body to offer. ESV, you prepared for a body you prepared for me. Berean Study, you prepared for me. None of them here are using a second person pronoun to emphasize the middle voice quality having a reflexive aspect, to preparing the praise. You prepared praise for you. So I don't think that's necessary. None of them do it here. Some of them do it in Matthew 21:16 for katertiso. But it wouldn't make a difference anyway. It's all to the Father's glory. You understand? So everything to the highest point Philippians 2:9-11 describes, which is all knees under heaven and under earth and under the ground, it's everything, is to the Father's glory and praise. It's all prepared by the Father for that purpose. It doesn't matter if it's going to someone else and as a result applying to him, like whether it's David, Solomon, Jesus, on earth or after the resurrection. It's the same thing. Let's go to a text that makes this even more clear, right? Let's go to John. This is very important. We talk about this a lot. And then this wraps it up, basically, this whole 2-point introduction I wanted to do. And if you have questions, great. If not, we'll kind of just wrap it up. And I will be back Saturday. Another Solis Veritas show on the divine name. Very important. I hope you'll join me this Saturday. Go to John 14. Remember, everyone, these are texts you just need to keep repeating to them. If they don't accept it, they don't want to agree with it, well, that's their problem, right? Just keep it simple. Don't let them off these clear texts. Now, this is very important here for reasons you may anticipate, but even more. John 14. Okay, so if we do take the middle voice for katertiso 15 as having this reflexive application toward, like, Yahweh is preparing the praise for himself out of the mouth of these children, even though that's not clear and not even likely, it seems to me, based on Hebrews 10:5, but nevertheless, it's not like we have a ton of New Testament data. Either way, it doesn't change anything ultimately for me, because all praise that Yahweh prepares out of anyone's mouth for anyone is for him. Right? So if he's preparing praise for anybody, that's ultimately because it's going to praise him. You give me one example where that's not the case, if you think so. So the question is, if we do accept this middle voice quality of Yahweh preparing praise out of the mouths of children for himself, and that this, therefore, to Trinitarians provides a basis for their identification of Jesus, or an equation of Jesus with Yahweh from Psalm 8 in Matthew 21? No. For all the reasons that we've been discussing, that I've highlighted and mentioned in relation to all the texts that also show the context of Matthew 21 is him coming in the name of Yahweh, his God, right? And that the Hosanna is to him as the son of David, not to the highest heaven. John 14:10. I need you guys, I know you use it. I can't emphasize this enough. This is critical to so many of their abuses of these texts. Their arguments from science, begging the question, and just lies. Look, okay, so you can put all that stuff, argument from science, begging the question, all the evidence that's against them, and then just point out again, look, Jesus himself states in John 14:10, "Don't you believe that I'm in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority." It actually says in the Greek, right? The New International mistranslates it here. It just says of myself. I don't say them of myself. Well, That's different from authority, right? This, to me, not a proper translation of a personal pronoun, right? Either way, I'm not saying my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me, doing his work. And this obviously is critical in many ways, but let's focus on what we're discussing, right? Trinity. So the Father is living in him, doing his work. The Greek, ha de pater en emoi, but the Father is in me. Menon poie ta erga autou. Doing his work. So, if Psalm 8 says, you prepared praise, even if it's you prepared praise for yourself out of the mouth of children, according to Jesus, right here, who's actually doing that? Right? So Psalm 8:2 says, Yahweh prepares praise out of the mouths of children and infants. Jesus says the Father's in him doing his work. Well, what's his work if not preparing praise out of the mouths of children, like he said? You see, their argument is, it's just really a bad argument. What happens, though, is they'll quote a text from the Old Testament applying to Yahweh, and then they'll quote a text in the New Testament, and they'll try to make a false equivalency. They try to say, well, it has to mean the same thing when applied to both. When even in Psalm 8, right, the very text we're talking about, one of them, the source quotation from Matthew 21, it goes on to talk about man being made lower than the gods, the angels, and applies that to Jesus in Hebrews 2:9, right? There's text applied all over the place, right? Psalm 2 is applied to David and then to Jesus. They're crazy. Psalm 45, Solomon and Jesus. So they only selectively interpret this way when it suits their doctrine, all while ignoring the texts that explain the application they're making wrongly, right? So if they're applying a text from Psalm 8 that says Yahweh is going to do something, prepare praise out of the mouths of children for himself or not, or just in general, and then Jesus quotes the text after children start praising him as the son of David and says, well, didn't you read? He's going to prepare praise out of the mouths of children for himself. Well, so who's preparing the praise then? According to Psalm 8, it's Yahweh, right? Well, who's preparing the praise out of the mouths of children in Matthew 21? It's Yahweh, isn't it? Isn't that what Jesus says right here? Sounds like it is to me. So what are they talking about? Exactly. They're just lying again, and they're arguing from silence. There's no historical narrative or account in the Bible that says what they're claiming, that it has to mean this. And they're begging the question by using their conclusion, which they haven't established because there is no account to establish it, as their argument. They're also contradicted by the actual evidence they're ignoring and that we accept. Right? And this is proof also their dragon church, right? Well, the dragon argues this pervertedly, right? Convolutedly, lyingly, define right what's right in front of you. We literally had Sam the other day, right? Claim that Jesus has always had life in himself while trying to explain a text that says the Father gave him life in himself. So there's no hope here for him. We'll hold it out, but, right? It's not like we're losing sleep over it. He's gone. So I hope that's clear to you, everyone, the importance of using those texts together, especially. Oh, let's go back. Actually, there's one more part. I'm sorry. So this is very clear, right? Yeah, the preparation of praise out of the mouths of the children in Psalm 8, Sam, or anyone else who argues like him for whatever reason, I don't know. It is the Father who's preparing it, just like Psalm 8 and Jesus says in Matthew 21. You're just not making an argument like you think you are. But this is very common for you and your side. Nevertheless, I have to point out because you're an effective liar, and now everyone knows it. Okay, but if we go on, verse 11, believe me, this is Jesus, when I say that I am in the Father and the Father's in me, or at least believe on the evidence, the works themselves, right? So right there again, he's saying, look at all the works going on. How can you deny the Father's in me doing his works if you look at the works, right? Well, Sam and these other perverts and liars keep telling us, what? Well, whose work is it if it's not the Father? So if the Father is preparing praise for himself out of the mouths of children in Psalm 8, and he's preparing praise for himself out of the mouths of children in Matthew 21, because his Messiah is there in his name and not doing anything of his own, but it's the Father living in him doing his works. Okay, so that's all the Father. It's the Father preparing the praise out of the mouths of those children. And it all applies to him directly or indirectly. And he's saying that right here. Look, the very thing Sam and these other perverts are arguing, that these things are happening that are applied to Yahweh, the Father in the Old Testament, they prove what he's saying right here. It's the Father. See, they keep thinking, no, that means Jesus is the second person of the Trinity. No, it proves the Father's in him, like literally living in him on earth, you perverts, doing his works. And Jesus even says, if you don't believe me, look at what I'm doing. Who else would be doing that, right? It's not him. It's the Father, you perverts. That's why you guys misunderstand so much. Last verse. This is probably the biggest one, too, in one sense. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I've been doing. And they will do even greater than these, because I'm going to the Father. Okay, so if Jesus is the one doing the works that are bringing forth the praise for him as Yahweh in Matthew 21, how could anyone do a work greater than that? How could anyone do a work greater, anyone, especially someone who's not a sinless perfect lamb, how could anyone do a work greater than Jesus' work of preparing praise for himself out of the mouths of children to prove he's the Messiah, Yahweh of the Old Testament? I don't see how it could get any greater than that. And yet Jesus right here says that those who believe in him will do works greater than the things he's done. After he goes to the Father. So it will include everything he's done. Exactly, because he's only doing what the Father wants him to do. It's literally the Father doing it in him. And then when he's with the Father, they're going to be here and they're going to be doing works because the Holy Spirit that the Father gives the Son will be given to them. And then they will be able to do things greater than Jesus because he never did works that showed he was Yahweh. Because if he did, there would be no way anybody could do a work greater than that. So these perverts have been destroyed in every conceivable way. Let's just take a look and see if you guys have any questions here. Got George Lopez here. I'm going to kind of just catch up on the chat here and see if I can get any questions from you guys. Some of it here. Let's see. Matthew 9:94. Dada. Says, Jesus claims that he can do everything that the Father does. How do you call someone that is almighty? No, he doesn't say he can do everything the Father does. He says he only does what he sees the Father doing. So that's a misquotation. Matthew 9:94 looks like. It proves he's not God or equal to God or God Almighty, right? So, for example, Jesus doesn't create all things out of the Father, right? Only the Father did that. because, well, Jesus was created out of the Father as well, so he didn't observe that. But what the Father shows him, right? Jesus says the Father shows him what he does, all the things that he does, which wouldn't include the thing he couldn't see because he was created, right? And he doesn't create the Father, so that's an exception right there. Plus, he has to watch the Father first, he says, John 5:19, Matthew 9:94. So he's obviously also not creating exactly what the Father does that he's observing, and he does it likewise. So there's nothing that indicates he can do everything the Father does. It only says he does what he sees the Father doing. So you misrepresented the text there, and it shows a temporal distinction. It also shows they're not working together as three persons sharing one nature, which would have to be the case because anything that any one of the persons does, it would have to be their spirit nature that's doing it. There's only one nature, right? Divine nature. So regardless of the distinction in persons, anything any of the persons does, the others have to be doing because they're sharing the same nature. And the nature is what they use to do things. It's their spirit being, right? That's what Sam and the others don't understand, why the Trinity is a false, fake doctrine. It's a pagan doctrine, cemented by a pagan emperor, an idolater, and a liar, a warmongering pervert. Let's see what else we got here. Let's change on there. Math's crazy, huh? Okay. Well, they can perv out as long as they're not disruptive. We know they're just going to repeat the same lies, and they don't understand what they're talking about. Yes, so the Christians will do works greater than Jesus on earth. So whatever works Jesus did on earth, Matthew 9:94, it's very obvious they didn't mean he was God. Otherwise, there'd be no way that we could do works greater than that. Mm-hmm. Trying to follow your guys' dialogue with each other. You guys are interacting with Matthew 9:94. He kind of perved out. But he's not like going crazy. Matthew 9:94 says, what's your opinion about Isaiah 9:5? Does it talk about Jesus? Will you tell us, Matthew 9:94? It's talking about a child who's born and who will be called Mighty God, which in the Greek translation of the Jews, as angel of great counsel. So, yeah, it seems like it applies to Jesus perfectly to us in all ways. Do you believe Jesus is an angel? Actually, Matthew 9:4. Can you tell me if you're a flat earther? To me, that's number one. Right. Because, well, looks like tarantula cleanse engagement. Okay, well, we'll let him do what he wants to do. Jesse Lyons, hello to you. He says in John 15:15, or John 16:15, it looks like, Jesus says, all the things my Father has is mine. Would that include his nature? Yes, it would. Jesus said in John 3, what's born from spirit is spirit. The Father, John 4:24, is spirit. It's very interesting to me, So they're not sharing the same, they have the same nature, right? What's born from flesh is flesh, right? We all understand that. There's no such thing as a birth from flesh that remains part of the birther's nature. It's an incoherent example of retardation that is only used by pagans who want to defend a murderous, idolatrous emperor who changed Christianity several hundred years after the Bible. Right. So it's very interesting to me. Some people, they can't handle how Jesus is a spirit, God's a spirit, angels are spirits. Well, he's got to be more. This just doesn't seem enough to say he's a spirit. Well, he's called a life-giving spirit. He's created that from his resurrection. But more than that, John 4:24 says, the Father is spirit, is a spirit. It doesn't seem like that's a problem for the Father to be called pneuma, of spirit, with no other qualification. You know, these people, again, they argue from silence, they beg the question, and their views are always wrong when they do that. They ignore the evidence. It's just them lying to themselves and other people to feel better about their paganism. Let's see what else we got here. He says, Jesse Lyon says, okay, it's an argument Jay Dyer uses, so okay. Well, I don't interact with him, so not a good argument, obviously, so it's obviously not something he's got locked in. But maybe that's the way they see it and he feels good about it. Whatever. Okay, there's someone here. Where is that? Sig. I think it's SIIG. Says, I would like to talk about Isaiah 9:6 in the Septuagint. Okay. Go ahead. Is there Sig? Okay, so Sig, do you have a question or are you just going to act like a pervert? No, I don't have a voice option here. You should, that should be obvious to you, right? We don't need to learn on the fly and have you breaking down after I ask you what your question is. You said you wanted to talk about Isaiah 9:6 in the Septuagint. Well, what is it you want to talk about? Are you not able to type? It looks like you can type. All right, well, we'll give you a couple seconds here, Sig. If you can't pull yourself together, looks like others are associating you with other perverts. Whatever, man, do what you want. I mean, I don't know how hard it is for you perverts to put down a question. Andre Johnson, we'll get to you in a second. Oh, okay, Sig, I don't see you saying anything about Isaiah 9:6. You said you wanted to discuss Isaiah 9:6 in the Septuagint. Either put down your point or you're gone. All right, I'm going to move on to Andre Johnson because Sig is flaming out. Andre Johnson says, what do Philippians 2:6 through 9 mean? They mean that Jesus was existing in the form of a God or God, because he's the image of God, and so would be in God's form as a spirit being, what's born from spirit is spirit. But it could also be as an unarticulate theos, form of a God, one of the sons of God. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and Word was with God and a God. One of the all angels, all sons of God that Job 38 says were in the beginning with God, no Trinity. So Philippians 2, 6 through 9 explicitly teaches that he destroyed himself in his divine form, his existing in the form of a God. Kanao always means totally wipe out, absolutely empty, gone. Does not mean limited. That's a lie. The whole kenosis, false teaching of you pagans is a lie. You guys just lie about him limiting himself, defy the use and meaning of the term for your paganism. So he was existing in the form of a God, emptied himself, total destruction, was born through Mary as a man. So he literally was recreated as a perfect human being, the last Adam, lower than the angels. No such thing as a God-man on earth. Just a perfect, sinless lamb like Revelation 5, 1 Corinthians 15 talk about. So he explicitly emptied himself of the divine form, took on the form of a man, and was faithful in that form until death. And then the rest of it goes on to explain, as I talked about earlier, for that reason God resurrected him to a new position, gave him the name above every name, right? The new name. Revelation 3:12 says he gets a new name. He's going to ride on us. It's not his God's name. Even if it is, it's a new name that he gets, like the angel in Exodus 23, showing it's not his name, eternally, no Trinity. All right. So hopefully that gives you a good explanation, Andre. Avona says, Sig is a Trinitarian from Speaker's Corner who is also into philosophy. I don't care who he is. He said he had a question about Isaiah 9:6 in the Septuagint. So am I missing that? I don't see that question here. Where is it? Let me see. No, he just says he's not a pervert. He wants to voice chat. Like I have time to go voice chatting with these people that show up that I have no idea who they are, and they're just pervert. They just want to what? They can't put a question in the chat. You can't put a comment down. You want to just talk to me on live because what? To satisfy your ego and perverted behavior? Sorry, Sig, that would be a pervert. Yet you don't need to talk to someone you've never met and don't know at all. You're literally talking to me right now in the chat, and you're, for some reason, delaying this question you claim to have. So I don't think you actually had a question, or if you did, you're bailing out. Let me see. Let me give one more chance here. He says, yes, in a VC discussion, it's going to be incoherent if I rant. No, we're like not retards. We can actually read. Yeah, question. You said you wanted to discuss Isaiah 9:6. So do you have a question or not? It's not, what, do you have to write a dissertation here? So you're obviously not capable of interacting with us. You knew this was not a call in, and you started in the chat and you asked in the chat. And then when I acknowledged you, you skedaddled, right? You perved out while saying you're not a pervert, and you can't even put down one simple question about Isaiah 9:6 in the Septuagint. I mean, how embarrassed do you want to be here, Sig? It looks like you're basically running around to Kelly Powers' channel and other channels acting like a pervert. So is this all you got, right? I mean, is this how you spend your time, my friend, right? You mean to tell me you don't have time to help the poor and the lowly? There's not someone in need you could actually be like making feel better as an image of God in distress right now? You actually have to come here and perv out and embarrass yourself? Literally self-sodomize, right? That's what we have here. Sig just sodomized himself in front of everybody. Unbelievable. I didn't remove him or anything. I just don't think he had a question. I think he's just lying, right? If he is involved with these people you guys are mentioning, well, we know where he comes from. And he's not going to be much different from them. And if he can't even put down one simple question after saying he wanted to talk about it, what does that tell you, right? Total humiliation and disgrace, Sig. You should be ashamed of yourself. Yeah, get a life, my friend. Try to help people who are actually in need. We don't need what you're offering here. I can tell you that. Okay. so much for SIG or whatever that was. I'm going to stick with pervert. When I see someone acting like that, interrupting people, acting weird, asking if you can discuss something, and then when the answer is yes, you don't want to. Now you want to have a private chat with someone you don't know. Right? You think you're special to the point where I should just carve out time for my day so you can hear my voice and I can hear. What are you like Sam and kind of homo? Right? Is that it? You want to act like get closer to me? Is that what it is, Sig? Sam fell in love with Bo Branson today. He literally, it was unbelievable. What I heard from Sam Shamoon today, I believe, qualifies as homoerotic behavior. And he even inflamed the women, right? Got them all fired up, lustful, right? This guy's crazy. From false doctrine to immoral behavior, perversion, right? Attacking people. I mean, if you're anywhere around Sam when the end comes, it's too late, right? You got to do it now. You got to get away from Sam. Even if it goes on forever and you want to be nowhere near his grave, nothing, okay? Nope, he's gone. And today, if the perverted behavior and doctrine, attacking everybody and all this just horrific manifestation of the demon god, if that's not enough, right? This isn't just once or twice, right? This is a whole lifetime of behavior here. It's not someone just having a bad day or even several bad days. It's like a bad life. Bad Catholic. Bad Catholics. All right. Yeah, he got homoerotic today. Gabriel Dill. Rock on, Greg. Trinitarians seem to come on only to mock and distract, not ask actual questions. Of course. Well, what are they going to ask, right? They don't ever ask in the comments either. What you see is what's there unless they insult me. That's the only time they get removed, if they act like perverts or stupid, right? Again, you guys, this game is over. There's really no need to take them seriously. We just do it because they're really active. They're the majority dragon church, so we can't totally ignore them. But it's not like we have to keep doing this. We're just doing it for the sake of new people. And we know that we have to maintain our presence and our voice or they'll drown us out with their perverted loudness, right? So we're sort of locked in on some level. Not all of us, though. I highly encourage a lot of you to just, unless you really enjoy this and you can handle it, just don't get involved, right? If you want to learn, something comes up, you know what to type and how to find it. But if you take in too much of Sam and these perverts who run around and act like this just beyond gone in every way you can imagine, not just false doctrine. That's the least of their problems, trust me. Just stay out of it. It's only going to depress you. Unless you're confused, right? If you need this, if this is something that's because of the damage Sam did and you're, that's okay. I get that. But if that isn't you, then don't bother yourself with Sam or these things. They're going to be too depressing. He's too gone. So if you're not immune to this and this is where you are, you can handle it. And no problem, right? Michael the Archangel, gone. Down he goes. Spiritual. Then don't burden yourself. You don't need to do this. One God the Father. It's explicitly taught in the Bible. You're good, okay? It's the teaching of Jesus, the only true God, the Father, and the apostles whose traditions we hand down. They don't because they're perverts. Bankhead. Bankhead showed up. And Betsy. Yeah, I guess he did. I don't know what happened there. That was a pretty wild perversion. I heard Kelly the other day. I was listening to Kelly because he was talking about Sam and all that and all the craziness. And I realized, and you remember I said with Kelly, I said, there's something here, and we all know, I claim eternal victory over Kelly just for that whole catastrophe and his failure to apologize, but I'm not really interested anyway. But setting all that aside, listening to Kelly the other day talk about Sam and Christian Prince, all this stuff, William was there too. They're all going crazy, perving out. I realized Kelly is actually a perfect foil for Sam. There's something about Kelly. Oh, yes, there is. Kelly, if you're listening out there, I already told everybody our goal is to have you at 300,000 or more by the end of next year, and we haven't even started 2025 yet. I stand behind that. You saw what we did for Sam. I started calling for his expansion before he was at 100. I said, look, the best way is to just get him up there and then totally destroy him, and then it all comes crumbling down, right? And so this is what we're working on right now. With Kelly, I don't think it's as severe of a problem, right? Still false doctrine, but Sam is clearly the most destructive force on the planet right now spiritually. I think, other than the fully perv-outs, although he's today, right? He did homoerotic perv-out. He was homoerotic today. I guarantee it, if you listen to that, there's no way a grown man, purely heterosexual, would do that. No, not even in a movie, not even for movie lines, right? I would be like, no, I'm sorry. You can keep that million. No, I'll keep my dignity, right? No. I want you all to listen to that if you can handle it. You can handle, just start at like minute 31. He starts talking about Bo Branson, right? And especially someone named Bo, you pervert. What are you doing? He got himself all aroused today in front of everybody over Bo Branson, and XJW Laura perved out. She was more restrained in her, lust toward Bo, but Sam, he tainted her with his perv. He got her to think about Bo Branson in a sexual manner. And so then XJW Laura wrote down in there, he's okay. And then another woman in Sam's perved out chat, I forget her name, the second woman, responded to XJW Laura and said, you're right, Laura. So that's two women that Sam caused to think in a lustful way toward a Christian man publicly today, while he is expressing sustained lust and erotic feelings. Oh yeah, he even questioned his own manhood as he was doing so. Right? Who would do that? So Sam, we're finding out, I don't know this whole, is he lying about his autism? Remember the other day he said he's autistic. Then he said he doesn't know if he's on the spectrum, right? So I told you, there's no lines you won't cross. There's no sacred God. Nothing matters to Sam but Sam, and that's it, right? Because remember who he's with. Oh yeah. So we're seeing the manifestation just go insane here. Right, and then this today, right, and then his Pope is all perved out. His Pope is the next time Sam does a video about our views or attacks me or anything like me or you, the first thing I'm gonna say is, hey Sam, I'm a path to God. This view you're attacking, the Pope, the head of your church, says it's a path to God. Right? So what are you doing? Right? You're a bad Catholic, Sam. That's who you are. All right, how long have we been going? What's 8:20? Over 2 hours? That one person earlier didn't like the sound of me eating. Yeah, because I only exist for you. I'm going to do everything for someone I don't know at all. And who could be a pervert for all I know. Certainly, obviously, too distracted by people doing normal things over a sustained period of time that you didn't pay for or have any say in arranging. People are crazy. Well, there's a lot of really crazy people. Yes. Okay, so Matthew 9:94. You kind of going rapid fire here. But we've already talked about that. John 5:23. All may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Okay, like the last, well, I forget exactly. I have a whole video on it. Let me just go to my channel and we'll go ahead and I'll show you a text, okay? Well, let me show you the text that will help you, hopefully. It may not. I don't know. Because it seems like you guys ask this question all the time. I show you guys the same text all the time. And nothing changes, right? It's this cacophony of garbage. Repetition of lies. Yeah, 1 John. So let me bring you guys up here. Matthew 9:94. This is your last one, Matthew 9:94, because this isn't all about you and your rapid fire questions. You asked a question, Philippians 2. I gave you a thorough answer. You want to follow up on it? So, okay, let's answer John 5. Just as the Father on the Son, Father just as he honors Son. Yeah, exactly. So what are you saying? That means they're equal in all ways? No, the Father gave him everything by which he's going to be honored just as the Father. Let me just show you also how that term doesn't mean that. Just as doesn't mean exactly in every way and for the same reasons to the same extent. 1 John 2:6. So the word in John 5:23, Matthew 9:94 is kathos. Just as, honor the Son, just as they honor the Father. This is just one example, okay? There's like a lot of these. This is just the one I use often because it's also in John, and it's the one that makes the point so well, that shows that interpreting it the way you guys do or that others have and are telling you in John 5:23 is wrong. So 1 John 2:6, the one claiming in him to abide ought, just as, kathos, that walk also he in the same way walked. So we don't walk just as Jesus walked perfectly and in every way to be able to do all that he did like him, do we? Matthew 9:94. Right, because that's not what kathos means. Trinitarians just lie to you. Right, they say things that I don't know and talking to people you don't know because they're so perverted they can't tell you the truth themselves. Right, they know about 1 John 2:6 and the use of kathos in it. They just don't want to tell you. They'd rather you, find out this way. So we're happy to help you. Jesus is honored just as the Father is honored because he is literally the one that the Father is appointing to act for him in all things. He's given all authority and power. He's on the Father's throne, acting as God to us. So why wouldn't we honor him just as the Father? That doesn't make him eternal like the Father. That's not why we're honoring him. That's not what Jesus is talking about in John 5. And it's not talking about him as the Father equally in any other ways, other than he's acting as the Father and so deserving of that honor. And that we're going to sit on his Father's throne with him if we conquer like he did. So the honor isn't about the things you do. They're about the things he's giving you for what you did. That's why the Father isn't honored for being someone who died like a man, because he didn't. So they're not honored in the same way for the same reasons. They're honored in the same way for different reasons. The Father is God Almighty, all authority and power because of that reason. And Jesus is given all authority and power because he conquered as a man and died faithfully. Like we discussed when I explained Philippians 2:6-9 earlier, all of which, including the highest possible position, and the rest of Philippians 2 is to the glory of God the Father, not anyone else. So there's no way Jesus could be the God of Isaiah to whose glory all of that is given in Isaiah 45 in a different context than Philippians 2, because there's no one there being exalted by Yahweh like there is in the New Testament. Okay, let's go back and just check. I know Matthew had a few questions in there. Hopefully that was helpful. I know you had a lot. We have one more. Matthew says, do you believe Trinitarians go to hell? Well, we all go to Hades, according to the Bible. Our spirit returns to the God who gave it. And then while we're awaiting the resurrection, the return of Jesus, or at the end of the 1,000 years in terms of the final resurrection, but in terms of the second coming resurrection, prior to that, everyone is in Hades, and those who are going to be resurrected and given new bodies as Christians, their spirit is with the Father. Those who aren't going to be resurrected, their spirit is not with the Father in the same way. That's the whole point of Jesus' illustration in Luke 16. So, in one sense, we're all in Hades before the resurrection, though our spirits are in different locations, right? We don't know how, when I say location, right, I'm speaking figuratively. It's metaphysical, so I'm using anthropomorphisms to discuss it based on like the accounts in Luke 16. So if you mean by hell, like the place of eternal torture, right, the lake of fire, or the separated part from God before the resurrection, then that's not something we take a position on. We just believe the Trinity is a false doctrine. So there could be people who sincerely believe it for reasons that they just never were able to fully understand. And so, like the Jews who were part of the arrangement that God rejected in the first century, but some of whom seem to have sincere dedication to him, like the widow with 2 coins at the temple that Jesus singled out. We can't assess people because of the system of belief that they're a part of entirely. So I never rendered judgments like that on people. I can only tell you what the Bible says, that those who practice what is filthy and who lie, things like that in Revelation near the end, says you do these things, you're not going to inherit God's kingdom, right? So if you lie, it is one of those things. So if you know the Trinity is a lie, you know it's not taught in the Bible and it contradicts what is taught, then I think you're in big trouble. If you don't know it's a lie and you believe it's actually what is taught because you've been educated by, Trinitarian churches and, your main focus isn't metaphysics and doctrine, but like helping the poor and the lowly. So you don't really get into it that much. Again, there seem to me to be the reasons why you could have people in all different religions who, because they're following the law of their heart and they don't know enough to be lying about some of the things they may believe as a group, well, that's for the Father through Jesus to decide, So we don't judge Trinitarians like that. In fact, Matthew 9:9-4, I have stated numerous times, other Christian witnesses of John may not necessarily accept this because it's not like a rule. But if you're a Trinitarian, you believe in the Trinity, but you want to like worship with us and you're not going to promote the Trinitarian doctrine, you're not going to start to argue with us over consubstantiality and how many persons God is, we would accept you, right? Because we understand, at least I do, that the way the Trinity has been forced into your thinking and often in traumatic ways where you're the subject of heresy and excommunication, right? If you do agree with something different than it. So, like with people who've been affected by Watchtower and others, these groups really do a lot of damage to people. That's their whole point, right? To either get you to follow them and stay with them and support them, or you're damaged. You try to leave. The net effect of you leaving these perverted groups is damage. That's not how it is with us. You can do the same things on your own or with us, no problem. So I would be, at least try to help Trinitarians, even if they still believed in the Trinity, as long as they're not going to contradict me openly while we're worshiping or teaching. That would be hard to do, I'm sure, for them, but maybe they're just going through the process, still working it out. So I wouldn't require that. I understand why Trinitarians believe some of the things they do, right? And the whole monotheism thing, and it's just easier for some Trinitarians. They can't, because they're not educated about the historical context and culture of the Bible and these angels in the Old Testament and the New Testament. They're identified as speaking for and as Yahweh, as sons of God who are gods, who are actually in the beginning with Yahweh, like the word. Of course, he's different than them, right? But he's both the only begotten and the firstborn. They're both used of him because they're both true. He's a specially generated son, just like Isaac was Abraham's specially generated son, given to Sarah and him at a time in their life when they couldn't have children. So it was divinely done. Still a son. Doesn't make Ishmael not his real son. It just means that Isaac was his specially generated son. And so with Jesus, he's that and the firstborn. He's specially generated by being directly created by God without an intermediary, right? The Word wasn't involved in his own creation. So God created him. What's born from spirit is spirit. And then through and in him created everything else. There is no creation ex nihilo anywhere taught in the Bible. And in fact, it's so interesting to me when I hear Trinitarians argue about, how if it's born out of God, it has to be eternal because it has his nature. No, that's not how nature works. That's just another invention, an argument from silence and assuming your question, begging the question by assuming your conclusion is your argument. The Bible never says that. It just says what's born from flesh is flesh. What's born from spirit is spirit. Being born requires a temporal distinction from the one you're born from, which is always the case. Never the case that you have a Siamese twin, the closest analogy or metaphor for the Trinitarian position, at least the doctrine of Constantine, consubstantiality, one nature, three persons. But you never have that with a father and a son. No, it's not even analogous in a Siamese twin sense, right? They have there is none. It's not taught in the Bible. It's against everything that's taught. All uses of son, father, born, beget, right? So Jesus is the firstborn. And the firstborn is defined in the Bible as the beginning of your generative power, not the end. So he can't be the only son of God if he's the firstborn. That requires that there are others. It's the beginning of your generative power. And the Bible explicitly refers to other sons of God who are spirits like God. Calls them all sons of God multiple times and says they're spirits, flames of fire, just like God, just like Jesus, proving what Jesus said is true. What's born from spirit is spirit. Right? They're individual spirits. This whole point of the plural, spirits, right? God, Psalm 82, John 10. Again, they redefine all these terms, everybody. They all mean individual beings. Someone asked me if I listened to William Lane Craig's debate with Muhammad Hijab, I think is his name. I'm not that familiar with him, but I did listen to the debate. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it, things I heard. One of the things I heard that Muhammad Hijab did not catch William Lane Craig on, and that is what would be he was, well, I don't want to get into it right now. William Lane Craig kept saying all kinds of problems with this debate, but one of the things he kept saying was he believes in the Trinity because the New Testament teaches there's one God, but three persons properly called God. Right there, Muhammad Hijab should have said, well, when you say persons, what do you mean? Do you mean an individual God? And Craig would have said, no, of course not. And Muhammad Hijab could have said, or should have said, exactly. But in the Bible and everywhere in the first century and before then, person only means individual being. So you said the Bible is the basis for the Trinity because William Lane Craig doesn't accept eternal generation, all this later pagan garbage, but he still accepts Nicene, Constantinopolitan Trinitarianism, basically. So it's really weird. He just reads the Trinity back into the New Testament and rejects other later pagan doctrines, right? But William Lane Craig said the New Testament is where he gets the Trinity. One God, three persons properly called God. No, that's not where you get that belief. Because if you did, the word persons wouldn't mean, like it always means, an individual being. So Muhammad Hijab could have said, well, Dr. Craig, it always means an individual person who's separate from others. There's no person of another being anywhere in the Bible explicitly taught. You believe it is. Where is it? Show me one example of where the word person or any person, spirit or human, isn't an individual spirit or human being. They can't do it because it doesn't exist, because it isn't true. But if you notice, Ahmadinejad didn't catch that. He caught him on a lot of other things. I don't want to get into it now. But they still get that bile out of you. I would have been right on that. It would have been over too, because what's Craig going to say then, right? Now he doesn't even have the New Testament, because he hasn't established that the word person ever means anything but an individual being, which for them it can't mean for any person of the Trinity. You understand? So the very thing it means and always has meant, except for people who believe in the Trinity, is the very thing they can't have it to mean. And the thing that they have to have it to mean is the very thing it never means. Go figure. Same with God. Let's see what else is happening here. Did Sig ever come back? That guy who went crazy on us? Kind of crazy. I guess if he took off, maybe he's not so bad. I don't know. It was kind of weird though. Henry Santiago, 1 Corinthians 8:6 is clear as day. Trinitarians do not have a response to this text. No, of course not. It's our primary doctrine. Word for word. They can't accept it. And even their whole failure to accept from out of the Father, right? They totally blow that. Don't understand that at all. Jesus makes it clear in John 3:3-6. What's born out of spirit is spirit. Just like what's born out of flesh is flesh. So only Trinitarians can't understand this because they don't believe it. They believe later paganism that contradicts it. And here we are. Right? It's so obvious and clear. Just follow the Bible, everyone. Don't get too caught up in this. Right? Unless you're really able to handle this and not lose your joy, get distracted by all these perverts, right? They can be depressing if you let them, because they lie, right? We're not meant to be encountering all these lies and avoidance of the truth. So just don't get involved with them. Let us handle it. There's several of us who will take care of it, no problem. Right? We've already done it, don't you think? I mean, we expose these perverts, no problem. We're here every week, live. We couldn't even get this guy earlier to put down a simple question where Isaiah 9:6 is Septuagint. I said, oh, no problem. Go ahead. Couldn't do it. Freaked out. All of a sudden became a problem. So we already know about Sam, right? He's gone. He has homoerotic tendencies today, if you got to hear that. I think you should, even if you can't stand Sam, just to prove to yourself what I'm saying. It was not normal. Oh yeah. And I may have to do even a separate evaluation of it. I've never heard anything like that. That's bad, Sam. Then you're not supposed to, Sam. Just how bad are you trying to make us all look here? So Matthew 9:94, I understand Trinity is more like a human being. You can differentiate between body and soul and ghost, and still without a fully human, still undeniably connected. Right. Well, that's an illustration Sam and others use, but it's not effective for the Trinity because there's not three persons in one human being, right? There's just one person there. Matthew 9:94. Because person is always a separate individual being. Unless, again, it's a Siamese twin, right? Which wouldn't be a parallel with the Trinity, because that's not what you have with a father and son relationship. Everything they do is perverted, which is why Sam has seemingly come out of the closet today. I don't know. It was real bizarre. What's happening here? So we have a person here, St. Pat. Is he going crazy? Or not? I don't know. I mean, they could look. There's some indications here. What's going on here, Saint Pat? What are you doing? Yeah, you're definitely going nuts, huh? St. Pat. What are you doing? Why is this happening? Why do you guys sometimes just go bananas? It's so interesting to me why you choose this, why you guys just collapse. Why can't you just ask a normal question? Why can't you just put a question down? Greg, this text says this. I believe it means this. What do you think? Greg, this text calls Jesus God. Why doesn't that prove Trinity? Greg, all things were created through Jesus, so how can he be a created thing? Why don't you just come up with a repeat if you got nothing? You guys are gone. I think it's over. I think literally we're probably, we're reaching the end of what they've got, right? And they know we're onto them in the whole repeat catastrophe. We may be reaching. Oh, Cody's here. I didn't see that. Good job, Cody. They appreciate you showing up. Body, soul, spirit argument doesn't work. God and the center are two persons, not parts of a person. Exactly. Our body, soul, and spirit aren't three persons like Trinity. Anyway, Maddie994, we give you credit for at least asking questions and representing your position or thoughts. I don't know what happened with the other people. It looked like we had a few more people kind of ready to go. And then I engaged them and they perved out, right? It was pretty wild. And then St. Pat is still going off. St. Pat, I think you got hurt, didn't you? You got hurt somewhere by someone. Are you ex-Watchtower? St. Pat, tell us where you got hurt. Did you get hurt with Watchtower, Mormons, Protestant, Catholic, Dragon Church, or Eastern Orthodox bastard child church? Where did you get hurt, St. Pat? Let's see. Let's see if you'll tell us. Why do you hate Jesus so much? I can tell that you have a perverted view of Jesus. Something happened to you. Something damaged your view of Jesus, and you blame us for what happened. Right? So you're here. You're here. Like you said, rage against the machine. Right? You're raging. I know it's a band name. But you're still, you said it. So, I don't know. It's just so interesting, isn't it, everybody? Well, St. Pat says, I didn't even realize it. I'm just the Riddler. That's what it is. You're the Riddler. Okay, Maddie994, shall we pray together that Jesus really reveals all of us whether he is God or not? I guess I could have a false doctrine, but I also still feel that he is really active relationship with Jesus. That I have a really active relationship with Jesus. Well, I think he already has revealed himself, right? We believe he's God's son, his firstborn, only begotten, which does involve a temporal creation in the metaphysical sense that's beyond our understanding. There's nothing in the Bible, Maddie, that says being a perfect first creation is bad. That's just a lie Trinitarians say to make it pejorative. The Bible in Revelation 5 says a spotless, sinless, perfect creature, the Lamb who was slaughtered, Jesus is a man, was worthy to take the scroll and open it and be honored right alongside God by being worshiped by all things. Exactly like Solomon was by all the Israelites with Ja'ol worshiped together in 1 Chronicles 29:20. It even uses the word for worship in 1 Chronicles 29:20, unlike Revelation 5. Or at least part of it, I think. Either way, doesn't matter. It's the same thing. God being honored alongside those whom he created for his glory. Yes, he did. Read Isaiah 43:7. We read it earlier. They're lying to you. God does create people, call them by his name for his glory. No one more so, according to the Bible, than Jesus. Okay, Jalham, you have a question? It's the last question. Go. Let's hear what you got. St. Pat. Greg, teach yourself the word. All then, I think he means I'll then contact my publicist. She'll forward you to my lawyer who will pass you on to my doctor who will get you what you need. Right. Well, I mean, if I ever want to become like you, St. Pat, I'll do exactly that. But I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know, should I leave you in here? You were kind of blasphemous, weren't you, St. Pat? You said some bad things. Mm-hmm. Let's see, did he say things that deserve, should we remove St. Pat? Maybe I should do a poll. St. Pat said some things that were mean. He was mean to us. We took it, though. We stood here, St. Pat, while you came in and insulted us. So you should at least be respectful. We took your insults and we let you keep doing it, just like Jesus, right? They're slapping him on the face. It's just sitting there and taking it. No, Son of God. No, they're going to keep doing it. No, and then what? Right. Resurrected. Throne of God. Done. Right? So we're going to do it. We're going to go through it. We're going to conquer. That's right. That's how we get there. Not in the sign of the cross, the pagan sign, right? As Constantine later replacement for conquering in the blood of the Lamb by following the commandments of God and Jesus. No. They love to perv it out. Who had that question? Wasn't it Jal Ham? Hey, Jal Ham, do you still have that question? I'll give you a second, but don't type like a book, okay? Or even a paragraph. Can you just put down a question if you haven't? If not, okay. Okay, so Jalham says, hi, Greg, I'm new to Christianity. Came from Sam's channel. Naturally Trinitarian. Extrapolate John 20:28 and John 14:11 as a triune God. How are they wrong? Well, because none of those texts teach a triune God. That's the number one. Right? None of them even use the word for God in any other way than that, as I said, an individual God. There is no example of the word God being used for a multi-personal being anywhere in history, except for the Trinity. Maybe some weird pagan religion, but certainly not in the Bible or anything. Now, Jalham, obviously, you're asking a question about, we're going to go to those texts, John 20:28 and John 14 in a second. But I have videos about all of those. So as a new person to Christianity, you want information, right? I'm going to go to those texts and give you the quick answer. It's pretty obvious, but I've also discussed these extensively, okay? So I'm going to show you where you can find that on my channel. Just go, I have a whole video on John 20:28. So if you just go to my channel, you go to this little search icon in the middle here, and you type John 20:28. Very first video. Bible and the Trinity in Conflict, Part 20. John 20:17 and John 20:28. Sam has no response to this, okay? He has never responded to this. He can't, because it doesn't teach what he lies to you about. I'm going to show you what it teaches real clearly. This will give you the extended, deep analysis you'll never hear from Sam, okay? Right there. Let me see, can I put that? I'll put it in the chat for you. So that's just one video. Of course, we talk about John 14 all the time. I talked about it earlier in this show. So in addition to what I'm going to tell you right now, well, what I would say, Jalham, I earlier went to the Bible Hub and read and in detail discussed John 14, 10 through 12, which includes your verse 11, okay? So just go to this video, watch the earlier parts if you didn't hear that. Like if you came here after I talked about John 14, 10 through 12. then just go back, just look, even if you don't want to watch the whole thing, just look at the point where you see me bringing up John 14 on the Bible Hub on the big screen. So that takes care of John 14, okay? And you can get a very detailed analysis of John 20:28 in that video I put in there. Now let's go ahead and read John 20:28, okay? Well, we'll read context too. But last subject for tonight. John 20. We'll just start where we always start, verse 17. All right, now Jal, hum. Okay, so we interpret the Bible, like the New Testament, the way the apostles and Jesus did, in light of the Old Testament. So if you read the book of Acts, chapter 7, Jal, you're going to see several examples in the 30s and 50s of the verses, where in the book of Acts, Old Testament accounts are interpreted, where God is like right there, directly talking to people. In the book of Acts, chapter 7, several of those accounts, including Moses and the burning bush, which even in that original account says it was an angel, several accounts in the book of Acts where it doesn't say they're angels in the Old Testament, but says they're Yahweh, God. It says they were angels. Not just an angel either. Angels. So does Galatians 3. Okay, so we've talked about this extensively, how all of those appearances in the Old Testament, none of them are actually God. Not one of them, except the account in Exodus 32, I believe. The end of the chapter where Moses wants to see God's face. God says, no, you can't do that. No one can see my face and live. So Yahweh puts Moses behind a rock, covers him with his hand, lets him see his backside. Every other account where it says they spoke to God face to face or anything like that, they're angels. Acts 7 proves it, and even some of the Old Testament accounts themselves prove it. So God's angels, his sons, the ones he makes spirits, flames of fire, according to Psalm 104 and Hebrews 1, they actually act and speak as God to everyone. Jesus, to both non-Trinitarians and most Trinitarians, is that angel, one of the main angels that acts and speaks for God, acts as God and speaks directly as him in the Old Testament. So Trinitarians and non-Trinitarians agree, many, not everyone, that Jesus is that angel in the Old Testament speaking for and as God. And Trinitarians believe he's still that same angel while he's a man and after his resurrection, right? Because he never stopped being that. He just took on the nature of a man to them, which is not true according to Philippians 2, like we read or talked about. Right? So there's never a case where you're seeing God. Never. John 1:18. No man has seen God at any time. The only begotten God or Son, there's a variant there, has explained him. So that proves right there, Jesus as the only begotten God, only begotten Son, isn't God, because no one has seen God. It doesn't say the Father, first person of a Trinity, right? That's what's never in the Bible. That's what they redefine all these terms to mean, or Son, second person, or Holy Spirit, third. It never means what it means, that they're individual gods. Right. So these angels, sons of God, are individual spirits, just like the Bible teaches all over the place. And they act for and speak as God. That doesn't make them God, though. And it's the same with Jesus, which he proves right here. Let's do it. John 20:17. Let's just read straight NIV. Oh. Verse 17, Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Okay, so if our God is triune, Jalham, then the Father is a Trinity. Right, because the Father is our God right here. He's not only our God according to Jesus, Jalham, he's Jesus' God. He's our Father and Jesus' Father. He's our God and Jesus' God. There is no other God. There's only one God, the Father, explicitly taught in 1 Corinthians 8:6. There are others who are called gods and who are gods in heaven and on earth, just like 1 Corinthians 8:5 teaches, and like Psalm 82 and Jesus in John 10:33 through 36 teach. Those are the sons of God we're talking about. All the angels, including Jesus, who represent God while speaking for him as his sons. Angels. That's why Jesus says his God is our God. The only beings that have a God are humans and angels. And there's only one God, the Father, 1 Corinthians 8:6. And then they go on to talk about, right, the intervening events. Jesus appears, shows him the proof of his resurrection, right, the wounds in his hands and feet. And then Thomas comes in. It says Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came earlier, but Mary was told to tell them, right, all the brothers, which would include Thomas, where he's going and what he's doing. Thomas doesn't even believe he's resurrected yet. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were, put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again. Thomas was with them, though the doors were locked, and Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Okay. So we just read a few verses earlier, Jesus tell Mary to tell everybody he's ascending to his God and their God. So who would that have to make this God right here? Thomas is talking directly to Jesus, just like every single person, Moses, Jacob, Dave, all of them. When they're talking to God in the Old Testament, they're talking to an angel, someone representing God. In most people's view, this very angel, the Son of God. Now, Trinitarians get confused. They tell you he's not an angel, Hebrews 1, but then they tell you he's the angel of the Old Testament. They lie. All angels are created spirits. Psalm 104, Hebrews 1, 7:14. Okay, they're just compared and contrasted with Jesus in Hebrews 1 because he became a man. He wasn't an angel during that time. Hebrews 2:9, quoting Psalm 8, no Trinity. So this would have to be the Father, wouldn't it, Jalham? Jesus just told us his God is the Father, and that's our God also. So since the Bible doesn't teach modalism, that Jesus is the Father, but like in John 14, they're separate. And like all throughout the Old Testament, all the sons of God are separate from their Father as created spirit angels. This is the exact same thing you see everywhere else in the Old Testament and in the New. Like when John is talking to an angel throughout Revelation, all of those, except for maybe the opening chapters, are angels speaking for and as God. It's only a problem when he starts worshiping the angel as an angel. It says that explicitly, that he started to worship the angel, not God, that the angel's representing. But the angel is in the middle of speaking for and as God, telling him he's coming quickly, speaking as the Alpha and the Omega, but breaks to correct John because John's worshiping him as an angel, like Trinitarians do. They worship angels. If not the Holy Spirit, then Jesus is the Old Testament angel. They claim it's a person of the Trinity, co-equal with God. No, they're angels. They're sons of God that represent God and speak for and as him. So whenever you see Jesus, you are literally, just like he said in John 14, you're speaking to God. You're speaking to the Father. He doesn't do or say anything but what the Father does and tells him to say. We read that earlier. John 14 made it explicit. It's actually the Father doing it in him. So you should have no hesitation whatsoever in addressing Jesus this way. The problem is so many of us have been conditioned to reject this in the proper way because of the improper way that is often misrepresented, namely, Thomas is somehow calling him a person of a triune God. Did Jesus say the triune God that's our God and his God in verse 17 is a Trinity? Or did he say it was one person, the Father? Exactly, he said one person. He didn't say one person. He only identified the Father as our God and his God. Well, that's exactly whom Paul says is the one God, the Father. So, just like in the Old Testament and in the New, when these angels, his sons, especially his firstborn one, speak for and as him, you absolutely can and should address him as if you're talking to God, the Father, because that's who he's talking as to you. Oh yeah, every word and everything he's doing, in fact. Didn't you read that text? There's multiple of them, in fact. Once you understand the Old Testament context in which this is presented in light of everything that we've also discussed, have multiple series going on, and everything is clear to us and the New Testament authors, Acts 7, Galatians 3. These angels act the same way, the sons of God act the same way, Jesus acts the same way. From Genesis to Revelation, no Trinity. And from Genesis to Revelation, the one God, the Father, is one person, the Father. Sons of God are gods, and there's no problem or threat to break the scripture. Jesus said that explicitly in John 10. We'll conclude with it right here. John 10, 33. I have multiple videos on this. Jalham, you got to watch it. Don't listen to Sam. He's a liar. Jesus says right here that when God calls the sons of God gods in Psalm 82, it doesn't break the scripture. NIV says set it aside. It's not a good translation. It means break. It doesn't contradict the scripture to call other sons of God gods. So no, it's not polytheism in a pejorative sense. It's monotheism in a biblical sense. And that's not Trinitarianism. Okay, Jalham, so I hope that helps you. And also watch the video. Let's see, is St. Pete going insane? Do we have to ban him? He's active. Let me see. Not too bad. Whatever. All right, St. Pete, you made it through. Congratulations, I guess. Although you're still acting a little weird, but that's okay. You can be a little weird. Just don't go full perv out, okay? We'll try to give you the benefit of the doubt here. Looks a little weird, but we're going to just try to work with people, right? We've used to dealing with Sam. We got a pretty high bar here. All right. It looks like you guys are good. So, Jalham, you got it. Glad you enjoyed it. That, to me, is the only way to interpret that account in light of the Old Testament and everything Jesus said in the context of that account, and that's true thereafter. Trinity is a whole different approach and model to interpreting texts like John 20:28. You have to redefine the terms used everywhere. So, my Lord and my God That's not what it means. When Thomas says to Jesus, my Lord and my God, to a Trinitarian or according to the Trinity, he's not acknowledging Jesus as an individual God or God there. He's saying, my second person of the Trinity. Oh yeah, that's what they mean every single time they apply God to him. Or to the Father, first person. Does that sound like what he's saying? My Lord and my second person of the Trinity, right? My second divine person of God. Well, he's not calling him God in the full sense. He's not calling him the Trinity, is he? Of course not. And he's not calling him the Father in a modalistic sense, even though that's what it would logically involve if the Trinitarians want to push the issue, because he says our God is the Father and his God is the Father. So if Thomas says, my Lord and my God, that either means he's the Father, or it means what it means everywhere else in the Bible where the sons of God speak for and as their Father. No one more so than Jesus, which is why he said in John 14, the other text you mentioned, you've seen me, you've seen the Father. It's not me. It's not because I'm saying what I'm saying or doing what I'm doing. He's in me doing it all and saying it all. And that's why Trinitarians miss and blow it all. Okay. All right. Well, we'll close it down before St. Pete goes insane. He says, the entire point of Jesus Christ was to save the entire world and make an end of sin. He took away the sin. There is no sin. Well, there's sin. He took it away in terms of counting against us as if we believe and practice what he taught. But the sin is obviously all around us. St. Pat, right? We see it everywhere. And it accurately fits the descriptions of sin in the Bible. So that's not what it means. Let's try to restore things. Okay, you're perving out. Well, whatever. All right, we'll go ahead and let you all enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Have a good Friday. I will be back Saturday. Solis Veritas continuation, part 4. We'll be talking about the divine name, both its use in the Bible and its pronunciation by Christians. So I thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. See you Saturday. And until then, may Jah bless you. In Jesus'